house robbery and being in possession of stolen property are likely to be added. The search is still on for the missing couple and for other suspects.
While today marks exactly a year since the George building collapse, Parliament is still calling for heads to roll and the building's developer to be prosecuted. The chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Human Settlements also wants a full review of the process followed by the National Home Builders Registration Council. 34 workers died at a construction site when the buildings came crashing down. Babalo Denza reports.
While a report has been finalized into the collapse, Parliament wants to see consequences against all those implicated. Human Settlements Committee Chairperson Mamo Hosiabi says while the NHBRC is acting on its own officials, the committee wants law enforcement to also step up.
Whilst the committee welcomed the assurance that some employees of the NHBRC are undergoing disciplinary processes, it emphasized the need for law enforcement agencies to expedite and prosecute the developer, who has shown complete disregard for building standards.
Siabi said families of those who died deserve justice and called for the minister to start the process of blacklisting the contractor. Baba Londenze, Eyewitness News.
The DA says it's not in the GNU to please the ANC following Secretary General Fikile Mbalula's lamenting of the Blue Party for taking the Employment Equity Amendment Act to court. The Pretoria High Court is scheduled to hear the DA's case today, challenging the constitutionality of Section 15A of the legislation. This section gives the minister the power to introduce targets for businesses and more than 50 people in their employ on the representation of historically marginalized groups in their companies. The DA vehemently opposes this legislation, saying the act rather introduces a divisive racial quota. Alfara Mushwana reports.
The ANC has been unhappy in its marriage with the DA, pointing out on several occasions that it can't stand the fact that it prefers to take a government it's part of to the courts. The ANC prefers the DA addresses its concerns through the GNU's internal dispute resolution mechanisms rather than resorting to the courts, as it has done with the budget impasse and now the Employment Equity Amendment Act. When asked whether the DA is worried about how the ANC might respond to yet another court challenge, Helen Zilla's response was that the ANC is not the DA's messiah.
We are not in the government of national unity to please the ANC or anyone else. We're in the government of national unity because we want to stand up for South Africans.
She says the DA has no plans to leave the GNU at this stage, but will continue to oppose laws it believes are counterproductive. Alfa Ramshwana, Eyewitness News, Johannesburg.
And France has condemned Israel's new military campaign in the Gaza Strip. France's foreign minister has commented a day after Israel's military said expanded operations in Gaza would include displacing most of its residents. Israel's security cabinet has approved a plan that consists of a conquest of the Gaza Strip and the holding of the territories. Israel's decision comes as the United Nations and aid organizations have repeatedly warned of a humanitarian catastrophe on the ground, with famine again looming after more than 2 months of a total Israeli blockade. Nearly all the Gaza Strip's 2.4 million people have been displaced, and at least once during the war sparked by Hamas's October 2023 attack on Israel. Gold is trading at $3,352.13 an ounce. The rand is at 18.27 to the dollar, 24.29 to the pound, 20.68 to the euro. Brent crude oil is at $61.21 a barrel.
And in the traffic, we've got delays on the M1 North before the Grayston Drive off-ramp. It is due to an accident right on Grayston Drive. Please be on the lookout there. While traveling on the N1 North, there's roadworks taking place at the Baklu interchange. Delays from Marlborough Drive. Please be on the lookout.
A partly cloudy day in store for Gauteng. The temperatures will peak at highs between 20 and 21 degrees. The top story in EWN this hour. Police say more arrests are expected in connection with the disappearance of journalist Asserin Ndlovu and his partner Zodwa Mdluli.
EWN, in touch, in tune and independent. For the latest, visit ewn.co.za or download the EWN app.
What are the matters that matter to you?
702 listens.
You're with Clement Manyathela
on 702.
Let's Walk the Talk, streaming on the Prime Media Plus app,
DSTV channel 856,
92.7 and 106 FM.
Seven minutes after 9 o'clock, Dumelang, welcome to the Clement Manyathela Show. It's a Tuesday, the 6th of May, a beautiful day here in Johannesburg. I hope it's an equally beautiful day where you are. Thank you for being with us here on 702. I hope you're well this morning. Hello to all of you YouTubers, if you're watching us on YouTube. Hello. You can comment there as well, remember, on the 702 open line or throughout the show, in fact, over the next 3 hours. It's easy to watch us live. You can just go to the 702 YouTube page to watch and listen to the show live. We start with the 702 open line this hour. You can share your thoughts with us about whatever is on your mind this morning. Or if you want to weigh in on what we're discussing today, you can call us on 011-883-0702. The WhatsApp line is 072-702-1702. So there's progress with the investigation into the missing case of Pretoria journalist Aseri Ndlovu. Remember, we spoke about this case yesterday. He and his partner have been missing since February. The police have now made arrests. 4 people have been arrested in connection with their disappearance. The first suspect was actually the last person to be seen in the company of the missing couple. The second and the third and fourth suspects that have been arrested were found with different vehicle parts believed to be that of the missing journalist. So once again, well done to the police for this progress, and I hope that it's going to bring some hope to the families of this couple. Now, can we talk about the DA court case? The DA has taken the government that it's part of, to court over the new employment equity targets for companies. So the party is against the amendments to the Employment Equity Act. And the amendment empowers the Minister of Labour to set numerical targets for equitable representation of, and this is very important, right? Because, and this is not what a lot of people who are against transformation, a lot of people who are against employment equity often say. This is very important. I'm going to repeat that. This amendment empowers the Minister of Labour to set numerical targets for equitable representation of suitably qualified individuals from designated groups of all occupational levels. And I'm emphasizing that because often when we talk about transformation, employment equity legislation, there are people who want you to believe that this legislation is meant to take whoever is a woman, whether they qualify or not. Oh, just take that woman. Oh, just take that guy because he's black. Huh? Oh, take that person who lives who has a disability just on the basis that they have a disability. That's rubbish. That's never been the intention of this legislation. It must still be suitably qualified individuals from the designated groups that are being targeted, right? So these are flexible employment equity targets. They are not like rigid mandatory quotas. Employers can set their annual numerical targets in their employment equity plans, which must comply with sectoral targets. Employers can also justify their failure to meet the targets on reasonable grounds, obviously. Again, the DA will want you to believe that, oh my God, if you fail to reach the target, there's no way you can even negotiate that. When I was looking at this legislation this morning, there are reasons for non-compliance. For instance, if there are not enough job openings or the employer cannot find suitable candidates from the designated groups that are underrepresented for the available positions, the employer can say so, that I've tried, but I haven't found, and they can provide proof that I've tried, I just didn't have suitable candidates for this. And that's a reasonable explanation to why you're not meeting the targets, right? You could also justify if there are limited opportunities for promotion within the organization and the employer cannot provide promotion opportunities to designated group, or maybe there are not enough individuals from designated groups with the necessary qualifications, skills, or experience to fill the positions. And I can go on and on and on. I mean, even employers can argue about the economic downturns, whether it's COVID-19 or load shedding. You can argue that I've significantly been impacted. My company has been impacted. And that ability to achieve the targets is hampered. Those are some of the reasonable grounds that you can give for not meeting the targets. So the Department of Labor, of Employment and Labor, has published the 5-year employment equity targets for, I think, 18 economic sectors. So they set percentages of the 4 upper occupational levels, like top management, senior management, professionally qualified or middle management, and the skills, technical or junior management, to be occupied by historically disadvantaged groups of people according to race, gender, and disability, because they've seen that there's an underrepresentation of certain races. And the whole aim is to address that underrepresentation of the designated groups in the workplace in relation to, of course, the economically active population. But, and this is important, employers would be required to comply with their own set annual employment targets. So it's not like government comes and says, 10 people in your company must be black, or must be Indian, or must be white, or must have a disability. That's not how it works. Government comes with targets, but government says, you know what, we understand that contexts are different. If you live in Durban, for instance, and that's an argument the DA uses a lot, if you live in Durban and maybe there are obviously, maybe perhaps where you are concentrated more people of Indian descent living in Durban, you can set your own targets as an employer. If you're living in the Western Cape, where there are, if you will, colored people or mixed race people, that's what you can set as your targets as a company and say, this is what we are setting as a company as targets, right? So employers are required to comply with their own set annual employment targets towards the achievement of the 5-year plan sector targets. So, and then non-compliance with the Act, of course, carries penalties, cancellation of state contracts. It's going to be difficult for you to do business with the state. But here's where the DA is arguing. The DA argues that if the law is enacted, a race belonging to a specific group concentrated in a geographical area could face exclusion from employment based on the national quota set by the minister. And I think the DA, once again, has proven how anti-transformation or anti-redress they are. Because they're arguing that the best path to achieving redress is through economic growth, through job creation, through inclusion. They argue that the new targets would drive away investors and shrink economic growth. I mean, do you think this creates a barrier to employment, these regulations, or advancement for members of particular racial groups in a particular area? And what do you think must be done to redress the injustices of the past? What must be done to level the playing field? Because the DA is making all sorts of arguments about, let's just do it through creating jobs. Yes, but when jobs are created, people who are being employed, through that we're seeing an underrepresentation of certain races. And not because there are no qualified people of those races who can occupy those positions, but because corporate South Africa sometimes is just not interested to transform. You must go look at the employment equity, the Commission for Employment Equity. They always reveal, year after year, they reveal how workplace transformation remains sluggish. Every year they're telling us that there's still an overrepresentation of white people in top and senior management positions. And this is in all provinces. I mean, the construction, the finance and the business sectors were the slowest in terms of transformation in the workplace in line with affirmative action. So basically, white males are still ranked high in top management positions at 56.4% in the private sector, and black Africans occupy only 15% of management positions. What does that tell you about a country when you look at how many black people live here, how many white people live here? And for me, it shows companies are refusing to transform. Corporate South Africa, I don't think, is interested in transformation. Parts of it. And I don't know if the companies realize that by refusing to comply with affirmative action, they're actually an impediment to the country's progress. I mean, the original Employment Equity Act of 1998 was implemented with the aim of preventing discrimination in the workplace and to address the country's history of structural exclusion on the basis of race. And these targets the DA is challenging, as I said, are going to be based on the reality of the various sectors. But the DA wants you to believe that, colored people are going to lose their jobs, or people of Indian descent are going to lose their jobs. That's why it's important to read the actual law, read the regulations, and not just take what politicians tell you, whether it's the DA or the ANC, because then you see the meat, what the companies are actually given the leverage to do. But the DA is good with fear-mongering. That's what they excel in, actually. Let me know your thoughts. 011-883-0702. WhatsApp's on 072-702-1702. Between 10 and 11 o'clock, we're going to be in conversation with the Freedom Front Plus leader, Dr. Corné Mulder. His party is part of the Government of National Unity. So we'll chat about the party itself. We'll chat about them being part of Government of National Unity and where they see this country going and where they see the Freedom Front growing in a post-democratic South Africa that is evolving. At 11 o'clock, we're going to do our World of Work feature, and today we're discussing how to grow leaders in the workplace. 11:30 on our Health and Wellness feature, we're going to talk about body dysmorphia and what that is all about. That's the show coming up over the next 3 hours.
Clement Manyathela, streaming on the Prime Media Plus app.
DSTV channel 856,
92.7
and 106 FM.
Morning, Clement. Listening to your show and your introduction on the employment equity discussion, it is a very emotive and very much a grey area discussion. But I am disappointed, that you are also buying into the narrative that if anybody sort of challenge or questions employment equity, then you're anti-transformation. That's absolutely not true. The problem with many of our laws in the country is the way that it's being implemented and applied and the consequences of that. So, a very emotional discussion, and a lot of people do put blinkers on. But I do expect more, Clement. Come now, you need to guide the conversation, not be partisan and making statements that if you are challenging employment equity, you're anti-transformation. I do not think that is a correct statement to make. And please, I am not a DA supporter. Thanks. Listening to the conversation.
Yeah, so first, I think you're wrong in that I never said that when you're challenging the legislation, then you're anti-transformation. In fact, I started even with Bongani to say it's not enough to just say, oh, this law is unconstitutional, or you're challenging it on technicality. I'm interested to know, how else do you think we can redress? That's what I'm interested to know. Of course, if there is a law that is unconstitutional, that must be challenged in court. We need constitutional clarity. I don't have a problem with that. But I can make a statement that I think the DA is anti-transformation because I say that with context. Because I've observed, I've watched the Democratic Alliance, I've reported about the DA, I have covered the DA's conferences, I've been part of discussions about what their position is on race. And I think what some of you sometimes forget is that I actually get paid to have an opinion. My job here is actually to have an opinion. And your job, responsibility, or part of the show is to have your own opinion. And sometimes I get swayed. Sometimes I'm like, Lebohang, you're making a good point there. Sometimes you think I enlighten you. That's the whole process of us having a conversation. That doesn't mean that I'm always right or that you're always right. So when I challenge something and I say, I think the president is indecisive, or I think the DA is anti-transformation, there's a context I give you. And again, that's why I spend so much time framing my comments I've tried not to be a presenter or a host of a show who just comes and says, the DA says. No, I actually go and read. Like this morning, I read the legislation. I read the act. I write. Why? Because I want to be informed when I talk to you, to show you that I've actually given it thought. And based on the thought I've given this is my view. And I would like you to do the same. I'd like you to actually go read the legislation, come back and say, I've actually heard what you said, Clement, but this is where I disagree, or this is where I agree. So I think the DA is anti-transformation because I've never really had them give me a proper policy argument that says to me that they are interested. And I'm not just basing it on this court case. This is a comment I've made before. So let me know what you think of this particular legislation. I'm telling you what I think. I'm saying the DA keeps lying and saying, colored people are going to lose jobs. Oh, Indian people in KwaZulu-Natal, you must be scared. Fear-mongering. But when I read the legislation, that's not what I'm getting. In fact, when I read the legislation, government says, oh, if you are a company there in KwaZulu-Natal, you can set your own targets based on your own context. But that's not what the DA is going to tell you because it doesn't serve them and their narrative. Kustas, let's start with Tsepo first. Tsepo is calling us from Pretoria. Tsepo, what are your thoughts? Go ahead.
Hi, Clement.
Sure.
Clement, my input is that you need to restructure the economy, not just transform the boards. Because what we have a situation where 90% of our salaries, they go to businesses that we don't own, they go to businesses that we didn't set up. So if you to change and redirect our money to businesses that we own, then eventually you will have an economy that's transformed. Because if you are to do the legislation, even if you are to set up a transformation fund, which is also a joke on its own, because if you think about it, the whole government is a transformation fund, because the government, the black people who are in government today, they could transform the economy through the policies they put up in place. But they don't do that. They rather have a 100 billion transformation fund. At the same time, you have a situation where a few people who own the economy, they will always safeguard themselves because they don't want anyone to take bread from them. But if me and you, our salaries were directed towards businesses that reflect our values, whether they're white-owned or black-owned, ultimately we'll have a situation where the economy is transformed. So to look at it from a legislation point of view and only looking at the employment equity, the transformation exercise that DA is doing, it will only be short-sighted. What we need to do is to educate people about the power of the money that you have, because people will disrespect you if you don't use your money in a way that it serves you and it serves your community. And that's my take on this, because everything else will always be a repeat until you restructure the way the economy is. If you have 80% of the community supporting a business, that business has to, in a way, comply with what the community wants. And if they don't, the community can move their money to the next business that will comply with and work with the community.
And I suppose, Tsepo, that's going to take a mind shift as well, right? Because there are some big businesses that come into our communities and we support them. And then when Tsepo starts, his little small business there on the side, offering, the same services, sometimes as communities, we don't support that business because, some people think white is right. So I'm always going to go to big business because I trust their products more. And I think there's a shifting of the mind that is also needed among ourselves in our own communities to know that, just because this big business is black owned doesn't mean the service is terrible. But equally so, just because it's black owned doesn't mean they're going to offer a proper service. So it's okay also for us to criticize a company that is black owned. But I'm just saying, let's shift our thinking. Let's understand that power, our buying power, and exercise that. And I agree with you that that's going to help us then get to a better place.
Yes, I didn't want to be long, but I was doing some basic research on some of the areas I used to work around, and now look around as to how money is basically taken out of the whole community. Whether you have grant recipients getting their grants, or you have people getting their minimal wage, in a small village, a truck full of goods and services, a truck full of goods would come in at around month's end, and the whole community will go swipe their cards, and that whole money in the community goes out of the community, and then they are left with unemployment. But everybody has the goods that they wanted. And what I was looking at is how do you develop a system where you redirect the profits back into the community. Yes, it will be expensive in terms of educating and empowering the community, but that's the price that we have to pay to say, let's have faith in our decisions, to say, if I support your then I need to make sure that your business runs in a way that aligns with my values. If I value customer experience, I need to tell you that I want decent customer experience for me to buy from your business. If you don't, then I'll move to the next business.
Yeah.
And if we did that 10, 20 years ago, today we'll have a transformed economy. But it's never too late to start.
Yeah. Sorry, before I let you go, that research you were doing, was it just like you were doing it for fun, or was it part of your studies?
No. It's a product we are launching. We basically launching it on the continent, hoping it goes all at one go. It's been 27 years, but it's done now. Okay,
all the best with that, Tsepo, in Pretoria. Thank you for your call, man. Kustas, you're in Midrand. What do you think?
Yeah, Clement, I hope my line is better. You can hear me clearly. Right. Clement, DA is just the face of many corporate companies in South Africa who do not want transformation. So DA itself is not anti-transformation, but the people who are funding DA are extremely anti-transformation. DA is in government today not to represent Gustav, but to represent Peter and Mark, who are owning businesses in the vast parts of the country. And hence you find that the ANC offers a lot of lip service on transformation, Clement, because a lot of these companies get away with these things for years without fine. If the ANC is serious about transformation, Clement, show me the quality of the lawyers they're going to send to court to defend this thing. They're going to send someone who's not going to defend this thing, and the DA will send the top legal minds in the country in order to do what? To win. So I'm suggesting to you, Clement, that when you look at the DA does what its constituency expected to do. So they didn't just go on their own today. When the ANC is told by its constituents, do 1, 2, 3, they don't listen. But the DA does. And it is not in the interest, for instance, of a member. Let's just say Kutas was a member of DA. It's not in his my interest. It's an interest of the guy who has given DA 500,000 million rands to make sure that it runs properly and everything. So they fully fund the DA. They take it to government. When they get into government, they want to make sure that everything that affects them is pushed back, and the DA has succeeded, while the ANC offers lip service. So there is the.
Yeah. All right, Kustas in Midrand, thank you for your thoughts. Jeff, what are your thoughts? You're in Fourways. Hi.
Hey, Clemens, how you doing?
Good, brother. How are you?
Thanks for the opportunity, bro. Listen, I've got a few points, and I hope you can just give me the opportunity because the radio presenters often shut us down quite quickly. But you're in a position of power where your opinion is valued and you speak sense. But you often criticize the DA, and Kustas just did the same thing. Kustas, the DA is not it's not a white party, and that's the sense that I get. It's a party that's fighting for South Africa. And I think this comment is being viewed on a very granular level. What the DA is doing, we need to understand the true hurdles to economic growth in South Africa, and that's foreign direct investments. We need over 500,000 jobs to pull this country out of the mess that it's in. And the ideals and the policies of the ANC are what is hurdling that progress. So it's not about anti-transformation. It's about what are the hurdles to foreign direct investment. And those are the two major ideals of the ANC is what's hurdling that. That's the land expropriation, because nobody's going to invest 20 billion rand into South Africa if their land is not secure. And nobody's going to give an investment into South Africa if 25% needs to be given to black management. So those are the two fundamentals. And they're fighting for South Africans. The recent VAT win in itself is testament. That's a 75 billion rand saving that was made for South Africans, not for blacks, not for whites, for South Africans. And to go back to my initial point, you are in a position of power, and your constant criticism of the only party that's trying to fight for South Africa is, for me, very negative.
Okay, Jeff. Okay, thank you for that, Jeff. And I don't know what to say, guys. And I'm not going to direct this to Jeff because it's not the first time it's raised. I'm going to actually direct it to other people who make it. With respect, guys, I find it really lazy. I find it lazy to argue with me and want to call me, you always criticize the DA, because first of all, that is not factual. What was I called last week? I was called the DA's lapdog over the last 2 weeks. Why? Because I was busy praising the DA for having fought the VAT hike in court. Isn't that what I did 2 weeks ago? Wasn't I called Helen's lapdog? I was called all sorts of names because I was praising the Democratic Alliance for having thought of going to court, because had it not been for them and that EFF court case, we wouldn't be here. So I really think we could have just rational arguments, because I'm called EFF lapdog, or then the next time I hate the EFF. And if you've been listening to me for even just 2 years or just 3 years, you will know that I've been called all sorts of things. So today I'm probably going to be called an ANC lapdog. But with respect, I really just find it lazy to just make these statements of, you hate the DA, you always criticize the DA. And then I praise the DA, then you hate the ANC, you are terrible. What do you want me to do? I'm a host that's always going to have differing opinions. Today I may disagree with the DA, tomorrow I may agree with them. Today I may disagree with the ANC, tomorrow I may agree with them. I think Jeff raises a good point about foreign direct investments. I absolutely agree with that. That's important. But transformation is also important. I don't want to live in a country where, there's an overrepresentation of a particular race in management position in corporate South Africa. That's weird. That is so skewed. Especially if there are equally suitable people who can occupy those positions who are of different races and genders. This act is not just about race. This act is about gender representation. This act is about people with disability. And there are a lot of companies out there who don't care. As a white woman listening to us now, there's a company out there that doesn't care about bringing you up on board. But they're going to go and appoint a male, because historically that's what's always been the position, and that's safe to do. But you are a white woman who is equally suitable, equally qualified to do the job. So I just hope that when we have these discussions, let's look at the actually merits of the case. I think it is lazy to just go call in and say, you always criticize the DA, because first of all, that's factual. I can give you many instances where I've agreed with the DA, where I've even tweeted and say, this is a DA win, and I get attacked for it, which I don't care about because I've got an opinion and I stick by it. So you raise a good point, Fred, but next time, just if you're going to say I always criticize the DA, then at least give me examples of that. It's 9:33. Swiso, hi.
Thanks, Clement. Good morning. A memorial service for 3 Free State police officers who died in the Henops River will be held today. The official service taking place in Bloemfontein comes days after authorities recovered a vehicle the cops were traveling in. Constables Boipelo Sinoge, Qabekulu Linda and Kemukhetswe Boyce died in a crash in Centurion while en route to Polokwane. The bail hearing of the man accused of killing Walter Sisulu University student Sisonke Mbolekwa will be heard in the Mthatha Magistrates Court today. Malelisi Mampane, a residence manager at the institution, allegedly shot and killed Mbolekwa during a student protest on campus last month. He was meant to apply for bail last week, but this was put on hold due to a power outage at the courthouse. And more than 200 members of Colombia's biggest drug cartel have been arrested. The cartel is accused of murdering 24 security force members last month. The Gulf clan was born out of the right-wing paramilitary groups that fought insurgents in the 1990s before turning their attention to the cocaine trade. And those are the headlines. This EWN and more at 10 or as it happens.
EWN Traffic.
This EWN Traffic is brought to you by cars.co.za. Let's find what moves you. Amo, how are the roads moving?
Well, at this point, we've got delays on the M1 South towards Carr Street. There's roadworks that are taking place along that route. I do expect delays coming out of Empire Road. While traveling on the M1 North, delays from Boyson's Road towards the Carr Street exit, obviously because of the roadworks that are taking place on the opposite side of the road. Traveling in 4 ways, an accident along Winnie Mandela Drive right near the N1 exit, delays from Vetkoppen Road. There's also queuing traffic on the N1 North in the Sunnyhill area between Rivonia Road and the Buccleuch interchange. That's due to the roadworks that are causing delays right at the Buccleuch turn off. The N3 North through Kelvin is also affected. And traveling in the city of Tshwane, we've got a faulty traffic lights reported in Groenkloof at Christian de Wet Road and Euphius Road. They're also out in Centurion at Royhesgrove Road and Eastern Road. Please be on the lookout there and drive with care. More updates at the top of the hour.
There's more EWN on air, online, and on the EWN app.
Hey, Jim, what's wrong? Hi, Bob. I'm just so confused. I'm trying to buy a car, and I don't know where to stop. Well, have you tried to...
Cars.coza.
have you tried to...
Cars.coza.
Sorry, we're trying to do an advert.
Whatever car you want to buy or sell, cut through the and just go to cars.coza and let's find what moves you. Cars.coza.
Africa Milani.
Weekday mornings,
4 to 6.
The DA has made it very clear that they are not opposed to transformation. In fact, they said in the statement they're committed to doing everything they can to build a country where everyone has an opportunity to shape their future on the basis of their ability and hard work.
Leadership starts at the top where you are setting the tone for a particular direction. Number two, these are negotiated targets. They're not necessarily quotas, which is something that we've always argued, even in the 90s, to say we've got to have negotiated targets.
Africa Milani.
4 to 6 on 702.
Live extra with Checkers and save with over 1,500 deals every week. Like Baby Soft 2-ply white toilet rolls 24-pack for $169.99. Crystal Valley cheddar or Gouda cheese 750 grams, any two for 189 Rand. And Ina Parman's product range, buy any 3 and save 20%. Valid until Sunday at Checkers, Checkers Hyper, or shop on 6060.
Managing your workforce shouldn't be complicated. That's why businesses choose Onacy, a proudly South African cloud-based payroll and HR solution. From payroll and e-recruitment to performance management and self-service tools, we streamline the way businesses handle their people. Scalable, secure, and always online, our system evolves with your needs because your workforce deserves the best. Switch to Onacy and experience payroll and HR done right. Visit onacy.com today.
Remember when everyone thought NFTs were the future of modern art? When non-fungible was a buzzword used in boardrooms to justify buying pixels, and the metaverse was just months away, and that we'll all be living in our virtual mansions, admiring our digital paintings, only to realize they were just expensive JPEGs. When you can't trust a trend, trust a 30-year track record of outperforming benchmarks.
Coronation. Trust is earned. Coronation is an authorized FSP.
Some walks are just for exercise, others for leisure. But this walk is for something greater.
It's team building.
This July, you won't just take a step, you'll take a stand. You'll walk through history. You'll walk with it. On Sunday, 27 July, the 702 Walk the Talk, hosted by Freedom Park in the city of Tshwane, returns. It's a route that winds through the heart and soul of our capital city. From the sacred grounds of Freedom Park to the powerful steps of the Union buildings. Choose the 8-kilometer for those walking strong, the 6.7-kilometer in honor of Mandela Month, or the 4-kilometer for families and first-timers. Entries are 360 Rand for adults, 200 Rand for children under 12. Enter now on primemediaplus.com. 702 Walk the Talk, hosted by Freedom Park in the city of Tshwane, is where footsteps become footprints.
Your voice.
Your station.
Your open line.
Walk the Talk with Clement Manyathela.
On 702.
20 minutes before 10 o'clock. Let's continue with your calls. 011-883-0702. Your WhatsApps on 072-702-1702. Lizzie, you are calling from Joburg. Hi.
Yes, hi Clement.
Sure.
You know, this the first caller and the caller you responded to is not only lazy, it's just stereotypical, thoughtless, and being emotional. This subject, there's no gray area in this subject. That is why there's a legislation. Legislations are there to make sure that there's no gray areas. Things are clear to everyone. The other thing, Clement, this is not a black and white issue. There are white companies that are very progressive and they understand the benefits of inclusivity in their businesses, because when you've got people from various diverse backgrounds and various views, that is how your business will progress. Having said that, there are some companies, corporate South Africa, it's very, very guilty. I'll give you an example of myself. I'm a CA, I'm a black female, I've got an MBA. I struggle to get a job from corporate SA. It's either you are too qualified, no, you don't have experience. No, we don't want people that work for government. So now where should I work? And I want to challenge the company. And you can give them my number. I don't have a problem. It's called Life Healthcare. That hospital is very arrogant, where they tell the recruitment agents, and it's not only that company, that they don't want people that have got government on their CVs. And I ask myself, okay, so then why don't you, your clients, your patients, why don't you also say you don't take people from government, you don't want their money, you don't want the share price to be increased by money from government. So I challenge the CEO and the board, the chairman of the board, to come on the radio to say that they never said this statement. I'm quite happy for you to give them my number, and I will tell them that their recruitment agent told me that they don't want people from government. It's not only them. Many, the story I'm telling you, talk to many black female CAs that have worked in government. They cannot work in corporate because corporate South Africa sees anyone who has worked in government as a corrupt person. We ran away from government because we are running from corrupt people. So we've got these qualifications. We are black. We are females. We've got qualifications for credentials, not only qualifications, credentials behind our CVs. We are sitting. We are doing nothing. We're trying to find businesses. We always find a brick wall in front of us.
Yeah, well, Lizzie, thank you for your contribution. And yeah, that's so sad to hear. Someone who is a chartered accountant, who has an MBA, and they're still struggling to find a job. I wish you all the best. And of course, Life Health, if you are listening to us, you want to respond to what Lizzie is saying, we're happy to give you that opportunity anytime. I think that, yeah, first of all, as I always say, I don't want us to call people names. So I want us to just disagree. Whether you disagree with Jeff or not, you can disagree with what he says. We don't have to call each other names. But I do disagree with the fact that legislation doesn't have gray areas. I do think legislation is not cast in stone. Even our own constitution, right? This beautiful, lovely document that we have, it's a guiding document for us, but it is not cast in stone. That is why we have the Constitutional Court that has changed legislation over the years. That is why the constitutionality of certain actions and legislations have been questioned. Legislation has been amended as well over the years. So I don't agree that that's like there's no gray area. In fact, sometimes there are legislations that are just simply of frustration. Legislation that must be amended. So we have the opportunity to do that. Legislation or the Constitution is not cast in stone. It's not some flawless document, like a holy document that must not even be questioned or challenged. Sister, you're calling from Parkview. What are your thoughts? Hi.
Hi, Clement. Look, you're right. There are gray areas everywhere, and I think that's why we always have to go back and look at things and rechange them. So just based on what I think previous callers have said, the DA has never been, for transformation at all. I think they cannot sit here and say that what the ANC is trying to do will disadvantage, black, white people, Indian or colored. Have they actually done the research to see how many black qualifying professionals that are sitting unemployed, mainly because they are black? And some of them are even in these organizations because they are black. But the mere fact that they are black, they are overlooked. You're black, you're a woman, you're white, you're a woman, you'd be overlooked. You're an Indian or a woman, you'd be overlooked mainly because of your gender. So I think they cannot be running to court all the time if they are representing the people. Even within the DA itself, if you look at it, how many of the black people that hold positions of power? We're looking at DA. You talk about Helen all the time. Helen has been there all the time holding a position of power. You have John Steenhuisen, who is holding a position of power. If we were to really go through John Steenhuisen's qualification, does he even qualify to be in that position? He is there for the mere fact that he's a white man, and that's why they will always fight everything that wants to redress what is happening in this country. And I think it's very lazy to say they're representing South Africans when they think some South Africans must be disadvantaged.
All right, sister in Parktown, thank you for your call. And to be fair on John Steenhuisen, yes, he does qualify to be in that position. It's not because he's white, it's because that's the nature of our politics. There is no requirement for you to have a master's or a grade 12 or a grade 8 for you to be a leader of a political party. Jacob Zuma was the president of the ANC. Did he have matric? Jacob Zuma was the president of this country. Did he have a postgraduate, undergrad degree? So that's not because John is white. It's just the nature of our politics. Even when you don't have matric. And yes, that's part of the problem in some cases, because there are people who are there in council or in parliament who just have no idea what's going on. And they're supposed to hold the executive accountable and somehow understand legislation, understand the balance sheet, the income statement. They are struggling. And some of them have opportunities. I mean, I've said it before. I don't think, people like John have had so many opportunities to study further. In fact, I think John is at UNISA now. I even tweeted him and said, well done. Because I don't understand how you can justify all the opportunities you've had, whether you're John Steenhuisen or anybody else in that position, and you still haven't taken up a chance to go and study further to advance your knowledge, but you want to be a leader? That's questionable. It's 13 minutes before 10. Leon and Peter, I'll start with your calls after the break.
Whether you own a startup in Sandton or a spaza shop in Soweto, Standard Bank has the solutions to grow your business. For just R9 per month, our MyMoBiz business account gives you access to free online banking and a team of business experts. Our Simply Blue Pro card machine enables you to accept payments anytime, anywhere. Search Standard Bank MyMoBiz and Simply Blue to amplify the growth of your business today. Standard Bank is an authorized FSB and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
Are you looking for the best savings on spectacles? At Specsavers, enjoy R1,500 off when you get tested at South Africa's trusted and most established optical group. Get R1,500 off all frames in store, or use your R1,500 off on our leading lens enhancements, such as drive light lenses that reduce artificial glare whilst driving. Book online or call your nearest store today. Affordable eye care, Specsavers. T's and C's apply.
Your voice. Your station. Your open line. Walk the talk with Clement Manyathela on 702.
12 minutes before 10 o'clock.
Now, Clement, I disagree with Jeff that foreign direct investment, blah, blah, blah. If you look at the UAE, for any company to set up shop in the UAE, there are stringent laws that they must comply to. There are stringent laws that they need to give a certain percentage to the people of the UAE. And the UAE is thriving. Companies are still going there.
Yeah.
So it's no. This guy is not. He's just seeing it from he's just seeing it from his point of view, where he's trying to use the certain things to strengthen his argument, but his argument is baseless.
Morning, Clement. Anonymous here. I think the DA's vision is that the country has enough employment such that, the equity element is easier to solve. At this moment, there's just not enough industry in this country, and therefore the bigger focus should be on growing industry, grow the slice of the pie. And then when the slice of the pie is much bigger and is still growing, then you have a lot more to share, which may not disadvantage others. As it stands, yes, it's noble and great, but you are continuously sharing little of everything. And the more complex the employment policies, the lesser attractiveness we are to investment.
Good morning. My question is, should an economy in a democracy, in free enterprise, be responsible for race equity? Surely the idea in a capitalist market, and not a socialist, is that you have choice of company, choice of employee, choice of product. Just a question.
Good morning, Clement. Clement, the DA enjoys scoring on goals after they've won people over. they really think transformation will happen. People will just give up their comfort zones in the name of redress or in the name of fairness. Nobody's going to do that. They're not going to change the status quo just because it's the right thing to do. If it was the right thing to do, they'd have done long time ago. A long time ago. Instead, what's happening is it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. The privileged keep getting more privileged. So redress is important. These quotas are important. And they are fighting the quotas that stipulate that people need to be qualified, not just any person off the street can get these jobs. You have to be qualified. So they just like Scott.
Yeah, that's the point I was making earlier, is they always pretend, like people who are so anti-transformation or anti-employment equity legislation, they always want to use the argument that, yeah, they just want black people, or you just want that because she's a woman. No, that's not what. Then you haven't read the Employment Equity Act. And that's disappointing, because that means you only take what politicians say. You don't invest in reading yourself. Go read the Act. Go read the Constitution, because the Constitution also talks about fair discrimination. Why? Because the Constitution recognizes where we come from in this country. So even this legislation, that's why earlier on I was stressing the fact that suitably qualified, that's a very, 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 very important phrase in the Act. It doesn't just say that you must just make sure that these people are employed. No, it talks about the people have to be suitably qualified. That's very important. But people who are anti this, they always make you believe that, oh, they just want you to take any woman. They just want you to take any black person. And maybe what we need to do more is to spend a lot of time also looking at, and that's not to say that our legislation is perfect, again. There are so many defects in some of our legislation. We've spoken about BE before and where it needs to improve, where it's failed, etc., etc. And even in this case, I'm just thinking maybe sometimes what we need to do is to also speak more about the positives of the legislation like that. Because there are a lot of us that have had the opportunities we've had. Why? Because of that legislation. There are a lot of you listening to us right now. A lot of you, whether you're a white woman, a black woman, black man, or Indian, colored, whatever, someone with a disability, there are a lot of you out there that have got the jobs. You're sitting in that position. And you've got every right to be there, by the way. You are very much qualified to be there. But you are there because you've been assisted by legislation. Because guess what? A lot of these companies are not interested. They're not interested in transformation. But because of and that's why legislation comes in. That's why it gets amended, because the picture is not changing. Overrepresentation of white males. Every time Commission of Employment Equity comes with a report, they tell you the same story over and over again. That's why legislation is required, to force the companies to do what is right. Otherwise, we're going to look like we're still in apartheid South Africa. How? 30 years later. How are we comfortable with a picture like that? Leon, you're calling from Johannesburg. What are your thoughts?
Thank you, Clement. I'll try and make it quick. Clement, for one, I think the DA is just true to their own identity and DNA. Remember, if you look at the DA as a party, they had some really progressive black people on very senior level. And when these guys started to making waves and making changes, they kicked them out. So in their mind, they really want white people on top and, a few black people that can jump according to what they suggest things should be. And in my view, I think there's this underlying assumption that, look, black people should go into government and then leave corporate South Africa to do what they want to do and operate accordingly. And I think one of your previous callers also mentioned on the WhatsApp group that, is this a social country, etc. A company is not only there to make profits. That's why they talk about this triple reporting. You need to look at the environment. You need to look at, there's a number of things that you look at, even the representation on your boards, etc. And there's always the excuse being given that foreign direct investment. If we look at, employment equity targets has been there before. If you then saying that this employment equity targets was there before, there wasn't significant changes. What foreign direct investment has been made to improve that? And my problem here, Clement, is that, if you look in terms of this new legislation, compare it to the previous legislation, if there are no very strict punitive measures for these companies, nothing will happen. And if I can give you an example, remember what happened to MTN a few years ago in Nigeria, where they have a $2 billion. And what happened then is that the board immediately convened. They jumped through loops and to make sure that, there's certain compliance that needs to happen, and there's certain changes that must happen. I think the same thing must happen within the South African context of these companies. We always have legislations after legislations, and nothing happens. I mean, we've seen the reports from year after year, but when are we get to a point where we're saying, these are the legislations, these are the punitive measures? I mean, if we're going to just look at the top 100 companies, and, I think these results are available, how much they actually sit on cash resources. So they don't invest in the country themselves for their own reasons. And even from the time of President Mbeki, right up, sorry, I don't know if you want to ask, but in my view, Clement, just to conclude here, even if we implement this legislation, as easy and liberal as it is and very, easy to comply with, unless there are some form of pain that the companies will feel for not complying, we will sit down here 10 years down the line.
You make such a good point there, and I remember asking the former Labour Minister, Tulas Nxesi, this question about punitive measures, because even this legislation, Leon, is so, it's not punitive enough, because you know what the companies do? If you're saying, we're going to fine you 10% of your profit, companies actually budget for that. They would rather budget for that extra 10% in case they're going to be fined for not meeting and not transforming enough than to actually go through that transformation journey. And that's why there must be serious punitive measures. And unfortunately, there aren't. And I'm not sure if that is going to push the company. I mean, for 30 years, clearly corporate South Africa doesn't want to move. Most of it doesn't want to move on the issue of transformation. So how do we force it to transform? If we're just going to bring measures that says, it's going to be difficult for you to do business with the government, we're going to fine you 10%.
You see, Clement, I've been a CFO of a few large entities and some of them listed. Here's the principal issue. When your fine is to an extent that it affects your share price, that you can't be budgeting for it, that's where the difference comes in. MTN can't budget a 2 billion fine because that would have an impact on your share price. So, these are the kind of things that you need to go and look at. But also, what do we do? Because we need to start creating industries within the South African context. If you remember, some of these share option schemes that have been cut off that, MultiChoice had them, Sasol had them, all of those share schemes that empowered black people. Those were all discarded. Why? Because it started empowering people, particularly black people. So really, in my view, Clement, for the sake of giving other people an opportunity as well, I think because the government, most of the government guys are in bed with these big entities. They sit, they have shares, they sit on some of these boards, and therefore they're not going to implement policies that's actually going to be punitive to the hands that feed them.
I absolutely agree. Leon, I'm out of time, but I think we've gotten that point. Thank you so much for your contribution, Leon. It's a minute before 10.
Every time we are on the radio, we are not just talking. We're turning words into actions.
Actions that change communities.
Actions that make a difference. And every time you tune into 702,
you're not just listening to the radio,
you're in conversation with us.
And your voice matters. You're on a journey with us.
And every step we take counts. It's these steps that not only help us grow as individuals, but also bring us together as a society. Through the good times and the bad.
Every step gets us closer to the South Africa we want to be.
So keep walking with 702.
And let's make this a journey to remember. 702.
Let's walk the talk.
Corporates That Care promotes and encourages corporate leaders and all citizens to walk the talk for a better South Africa. Catch Corporates That Care this Wednesday at 10 to 9, featuring Telkom. Their Group Chief Corporate Affairs, Paul McNamee, will be in conversation with Bongani Bingwa. Join us every Wednesday as we highlight the efforts of companies and brands dedicated to building our country. Corporates That Care is a Prime Media Cares initiative with 702 and Prime Media Outdoor. 702, let's walk the talk and make a difference together.
Dear Journal, trying to be an adult, day 3429. Just once, I wish instead of a compulsory stand-up, someone would send me a meeting request for a compulsory lie down. No wonder everyone hates millennials.
Hating the corporate 9 to 5? Get covered at pineapple.co.za. It's easy and like 19 Rand a day, so it's 100% the insurance for you. Underwritten by Old Mutual Alternative Risk Transfer Insurer Limited, a licensed non-life insurer and authorized FSP. Premiums are risk profile dependent.
This is EWN.
Good morning, I'm Sfiso Zulu. A memorial service for 3 Free State police officers who died in the Henops River will be held today. The official service taking place in Bloemfontein comes days after authorities recovered a vehicle the cops were travelling in. Constables Boipelo Sinoche, Clement Linda and Gemukhetso boys died in a crash in Centurion while en route to Polokwane. Mongezi Koko has more from Bloemfontein.
A week-long search for the missing constables ended with the grim discovery in the Henops River, hundreds of kilometers from where their journey began. Today, mourners, including police officers, provincial leaders and the devastated families, will pay tribute to the young constables. Boipelo Sinoche will be laid to rest on Thursday, followed by Clement Linda on Friday and Gemukhetso base on Saturday. Police say no foul play is suspected, but the investigation into what caused the crash continues. For now, the focus is on remembrance and honoring the lives of the 3 police officers. Mongezi Koko, Eyewitness News, Bloemfontein.
In the Eastern Cape, the bail hearing of the man accused of killing Walter Sisulu University student Sisonke Mbolegwa will be heard in the Mthatha Magistrates Court today. Manelisi Mampane, a residence manager at the institution, allegedly shot and killed Mbolegwa during a student protest on campus last month. He was meant to apply for bail last week, but this was put on hold due to a power outage at the courthouse. Nhlanhla Mabaso has more.
Manelisi Mampane is charged with murder and the attempted murder of another student, as well as the unlawful possession of a firearm and ammunition. Last week, the Mthatha Magistrates Court postponed the matter to resolve its electricity issues. Investigating officer Corné Mulder is expected to testify this morning. Students from the institution have since vowed to intensify their call for justice in the matter. Nhlanhla Mabaso, Eyewitness News, Mthatha, in the Eastern Cape.
Head of the Special Investigating Unit, Ndi Motebi, says he supports the establishment of an independent anti-corruption body for the country. While the DA has already tabled legislation in Parliament to this effect, Motebi says the preliminary recommendation of the National Anti-Corruption Advisory Council appears to be leaning in this direction. The SIU is currently playing host to the 15th Commonwealth Regional Conference for Heads of Anti-Corruption Agencies in Africa, which is meeting in Cape Town this week. Lindsay Dentlinker has more.
In 2022, the President established the National Anti-Corruption Advisory Council to advise him on strengthening South Africa's anti-corruption framework. SIU head Ndi Motebi says while he thinks the country's current anti-corruption architecture should not be tampered with, an overarching body would be a welcome addition.
They are also recommending a consolidation of some sort, and particularly around prevention, systemic investigations, and of course, the reactive investigations.
It's been mooted that an independent agency be referred to as the Office of Public Integrity Against Corruption. Several of the countries attending this week's summit have independent anti-corruption commissions.
It's really going to sort of almost restructure the anti-corruption architecture in the country and really strengthen its capability.
The conference continues today with an expected opening address by former Chief Justice Raymond Zondo, who chaired the commission into state capture. Lindsay Dentlinger, Eyewitness News.
And more than 200 members of Colombia's biggest drug cartel have been arrested. The cartel is accused of murdering 24 security force members last month. The Gulf clan was born out of the right-wing paramilitary groups that fought insurgents in the 1990s before turning their attention into a drug trade. Gold is trading at $3,358.13 an ounce. The rand is at 18.27 to the dollar, 24.29 to the pound, 20.68 to the euro. Brent crude oil is at $61.21 a barrel.
And in the traffic, we've got an accident reported on the N1 North. It happened right near the N17 exit, causing heavy delays from the Soweto Highway. Please be on the lookout there. If you're heading towards areas like Roodepoort, please try to avoid the N1 North at this point. Traveling on the M1 South, roadworks are taking place in the Braamfontein area, right near Car Street. Delays from Empire Road. The M1 North is also affected coming out of the Crown interchange.
A partly cloudy day in store for Gauteng. The temperatures will peak at highs between 20 and 21 degrees. The top story in EWN this hour, a memorial service for 3 Free State police officers who died in the Hanops River will be held today.
EWN, in touch, in tune, and independent. For the latest, visit ewn.co.za or download the EWN app. 702.
We're listening to you. You're with Clement Manyathela
On 702.
Let's walk the talk. Streaming on the Prime Media Plus app.
DSTV channel 856.
92.7 and 106 FM.
Seven minutes after 10 o'clock. Dumelang, welcome to the second hour of the Clement Manyathela Show. Thank you for staying with us here on 702. Thank you for your thoughts, your inputs on the 702 open line. Always appreciate your varied contribution on the open line. Remember, at 11 o'clock, we're going to be doing our World of Work feature. And today we're going to discuss how to grow leaders in the workplace. You know, leaders are groomed by other leaders. To grow leaders in the workplace, organizations can approach this in a variety of ways. They can implement various strategies, whether it's mentoring, coaching, leadership development programs, and these programs can then focus on developing those essential skills that a leader needs, like communication, emotional intelligence, the ability to motivate and inspire others. And unfortunately, some companies put people in leadership positions without actually grooming them and developing them as leaders. And that ends up being disastrous, because when you don't have good communication skills, when you don't have good people's skills, emotional intelligence, that is going to be a challenge for the people that you lead. And that's why we often hear of this term. People don't leave companies, they leave managers. And I think so it's important for us to have a conversation about how to grow leaders in the workplace. That's what's coming up at 11 o'clock. At 11:30, we're going to do our health and wellness feature. And today we'll be talking about body dysmorphia. This is a disorder. It's actually a mental health condition that disrupts how you see and feel about your own body and appearance. People commonly experience negative thoughts and emotions about how they look, which can cause severe disruptions in their life and even undermine their mental and physical well-being. So we're going to be looking at this. And if you have, or your loved one has experienced body dysmorphia disorder, how have you overcome that? How have you navigated that? If you have body dysmorphia disorder, your reaction to this flaw, and I say that in inverted commas, may become really overwhelming. So how do you deal with that when you find yourself in that situation? Our experts are going to help us navigate that chat at 11:30 on our health and wellness feature.
You're with Clement Manyathela.
702.
So now we start a conversation with Dr. Corné Mulder, who is the president of the Freedom Front Plus. As I said to you earlier on, this is a party that is part of the government of national unity. It's a party that also, I think, wants to start appealing more to other minorities beyond just the Afrikaner group. So we're going to talk about the party, talk about them being part of the government of national unity, where they see us as a country, where we are and where we're moving. So I would like you to join this conversation as well. You're welcome to give us a call on 011-883-0702. You can send WhatsApps on 072-702-1702 or post your comments there or your questions there on YouTube. You can go to the 702 YouTube page if you want to watch what's happening here in studio. Dr. Mulder, thank you so much for making time for us. Thank you for coming to studio. Good morning.
Yes, good morning, Clement. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be on your show. It's an honor and a privilege to be participating, and it's good to be here. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time. I just want to start off first by talking about, the government of national unity, because there's, it's some people are describing them as teething problems. When you look at coalitions across the world, they've got all sorts of challenges, and this is the first time sort of in post-democratic South Africa where we have a coalition of this nature at the national level. As the Freedom Front Plus being part of this coalition government, what is your assessment so far? Are you still happy to be part of it? Because there are certain decisions that I suppose have been taken that other parties like the Democratic Alliance have felt we don't agree with that, and they've decided to go the court route. What's your assessment so far as the Freedom Front Plus?
Yes, now let me put it this way. The Freedom Front Plus was very strongly in favor of the government of national unity after the election of last year. We thought that would be the right thing to do. But I am concerned that at the moment we are not dealing with teething problems. I think it's much more serious than that.
Yeah.
And there are various reasons for that. If you study coalitions internationally, what normally happens is that after election and you need to form a coalition, parties have ample time to come together and to negotiate amongst themselves, because no party's mandate received sufficient support to be governing on their own. So what they normally do is they come together and they negotiate a new mandate, which becomes the mandate of their coalition government or their government of national unity. And then everybody is committed to that new platform or that new mandate, and that new mandate has to be a compromise between the different parties within that coalition government. We have not done that, and there are various reasons for that. I think first of all because our constitution forces us to form a government within 14 days after the election. Our constitution was not written to accommodate coalition government, so we had to elect a president within 14 days. That happened, I think, on the 14th of June. The president then appointed the executive, but we have not spent time to negotiate and agree on a joint platform, and I think that is what's happening at the moment, where we have different policy views and each party implements their own, and that creates lots of tension and problems at the moment.
And I remember reading the statement of intent after it was signed, and I always go back to this when I talk even to the DA and the ANC, is that statement of intent spoke to the need for the government of national unity to have an agreed policy agenda. I mean, there's still not an agreed policy agenda.
Exactly. If you look at the Declaration of Intent, you'll see that it's framed in broad principle terms, basically, and it's focusing on economic growth and job creation. But then in the government, in the Declaration of Intent, it referred to there should be a national dialogue, and the understanding was that all these details should be sorted out at a national dialogue as soon as possible, and then that becomes the platform of the government of national unity. Now it's a year later. We have not had the national dialogue, and even when we had some discussions with the president recently, it seems to me that we may even differ in terms of what the intent would be with the national dialogue. So you're absolutely correct. At the moment there's no national platform that we are all implementing and all are committed to.
Yeah. So the question then is, because the DA also often complains a lot about some decisions that are taken, policy decisions that are contrary to what they would like to see or what their constituency would like to see. Then the question is, then why do you then stay in the GNU? And for you as the Freedom Front Plus, do you see yourself staying in even when you are still unhappy about some of the nitty-gritties you've mentioned? I mean, some people have come out to say, and I say this in inverted commas for lack of a better phrase, it's almost like you're the voting cow, so to speak, as other parties. Like the
Yes.
DA ANC just needs you to just rubber stamp their policy and their agreements. Is that really
Yes.
then their need for you to stay in this GNU?
Definitely not. If that is going to be the process, and if that's going to be how things are going to happen in future as well, the thing will collapse very sooner than later. It will simply collapse. Now, the problem is this: that originally, as I've said, the government was set up, and the executive was then appointed by the president, and ministers got involved in different portfolios, and they are starting to do their work. Then, basically, in terms of decisions taken by the Government of National Unity, I don't think sufficient decisions have been taken. For example, there were quite a lot of unhappiness with regard to the Bella Act, with regard to expropriation without compensation, the national health insurance. And then the ANC correctly pointed out and said, but wait, these things are all part of the Sixth Parliament. They were agreed by the Sixth Parliament, and all what happened now was the President acted in terms of what is expected of him, and he put those things into law by signing them, which is technically correct. We haven't seen real policy decisions in terms of the Government of National Unity, because that will be the first indication. Even with regard to international relations, the ANC has quite clearly stated that, and I can't think that the DA accepted that in negotiations, that is the exclusive domain of one party. That cannot be the case, but that's what happened basically. So I think the budget issue, which we went through and we are still in that process, gave the opportunity for basically a reset of the whole idea and the whole process within the Government of National Unity.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems that there's acceptance in that regard. The ANC also now talks about the reset. But once again, we may find that we have different interpretations of what we mean with the reset.
Yeah, just like there was different interpretation with that clause in the statement of intent that speaks to sufficient consensus, and
exactly,
and the DA and the ANC also interpreting it differently. Okay,
exactly.
How do you justify to your support base being part of the GNU? Has it been difficult? Because, I mean, you are now in the GNU with a party. I mean, the ANC is the biggest party in the GNU. It's a party that supports race-based policies, whether it's the black economic empowerment, or maybe you want to talk about land expropriation or employment equity legislation, which the DA is taking to court because they don't agree with the amendment to the Employment Equity Act. Among the Afrikaner support base, is there concern about you being part of the GNU?
Yes, there is. And what we did was, our approach from the beginning was, if you can be a partner around the table where the decisions are taken that affects the lives of all South Africans, also our own constituency. If you can be around that table, you need to be there. You need to be participating and trying to make a difference in also getting the issues that are important to your constituency to be dealt with, etc., etc. And as long as that is possible, I would like to see us participate in the process. But we have not reached that kind of situation or that kind of process at the moment. At the moment, it seems that the ANC wants to treat the other parties basically there just to provide the necessary votes. And that is the case. Let me just give you an example. If you come together as parties, and there are 10 parties within the Government of National Unity, then you are supposed to be committed to one another in terms of your agreement which you signed. And then you need to negotiate and find a compromise until you agree with one another or reach sufficient consensus. With regard to the budget, what the ANC then did was to go to parties outside the Government of National Unity to get sufficient numbers in Parliament to get the fiscal framework agreed on. That is basically almost like infidelity. That's just unacceptable, because what happens to trust within the Government of National Unity the moment when that happens, and the same can be said on the other side, if one of the parties don't find a compromise internally but goes to the court, as the DA did, it also breaches all the trust. So there's a huge trust deficit at the moment from all sides.
Yeah. Okay, so we've spoken about the GNU. I want us now to speak about the Freedom Front Plus as an organization. And I'm sure you come across this a lot, where people think of the Freedom Front Plus as this racist organization that represents, they care about Afrikaners, they've got apartheid nostalgia. Help us understand about the formation of the Freedom Front Plus, and why do you exist? Who do you represent? What are your values?
I think the point of departure you'll find in the name of the party, Freedom Front. Freedom, it's about freedom. Freedom is a very strong and central theme within the Afrikaner community. You can go look at our history. We want to say that we were one of the first peoples in Africa that fought against the colonial power, which were Britain at the time, the British Empire, when we fought for independence in the First and the Second Anglo-Boer Wars. So that is a very strong theme within the Afrikaner community. So when we got to 1994, there was a very strong feeling at the time that the National Party, or the government at the time, that they were going to sell us out. It was going to be a terrible situation where the ANC and the Communist Party comes into power. And I was there at the moment. I was part of that processes. And a lot of people were preparing basically to defend themselves and to prevent that in an armed struggle. There were talks about a civil war at that stage, and some of the older people around will remember those days. We then argued as a group of young politicians in the then Conservative Party that you have to be part of the process, you have to participate. And we tried to convince the Conservative Party, who were the official opposition at the time, that they needed to participate. They refused. We were then expelled because we didn't want to accept that kind of decision by the Conservative Party. And then we formed the Freedom Front. And the Freedom Front was then formed. The first leader was General Constant Viljoen. We participated in that election. We did quite well. And then we entered into negotiations. Well, even during the election, before the election period at CODESA, we were involved in negotiations with the ANC. And then we continued with that in terms of writing of the current constitution, etc. So the party started off as a party basically coming from with the support base of the Afrikaner community. That's where we came from. But we realize that the Afrikaners has been a minority since ever. We've always been a minority. So about 8-9 years ago, the party changed its mandate and its mission statement to say, but we don't want to be a party only exclusively for the Afrikaner community. Yes, that is our base where we came from. But we want to be a party for the rights of minorities in South Africa, all minorities. And we think we also need a vehicle that are fighting for the rights of minorities. Because that takes you to the definition of what is really a democracy. And some people will say, well, democracy means one person, one vote. And we will say, no, be very careful that you don't end up with a majority, tyranny of a majority in terms of that. You also need to ask, how are your minorities protected that they feel part and parcel of the greater scheme? And that is where the party positioned itself. Interesting enough, right from the beginning, when they formed the party in 1994, our constitution clearly made a provision to say, any South African, no race, no nothing, any South African 16 years and older who subscribes to the values and the credo of the party are welcome to join. But I've always said in the party way back, nobody believes you unless they can visibly see that people from other communities join the party. And since we changed the mission statement about 9 years ago, we now have members from other minorities and other groups in South Africa who are members of our party.
Yeah. So you speak a lot about earlier on when you started. It starts with the foundation. You fought for freedom. And then some people may argue that, yes, after fighting for that freedom, then what you did is you curtailed freedom. Well, not you, but, some of the people who fought there of Africa, who were from the Afrikaner group, then they curtailed the same freedom they fought for, they curtailed it for the black majority in the country. How do you deal with that as a Freedom Front Plus? Do you think there's enough appreciation of what that system created and the need to resolve the consequences that came with that system that was created?
Yes, I think we understand that. We realize the implications of our past, and we take note of that, and we understand that. I can't argue on behalf of the previous people that were part of that system at the time. They were trying to find a solution from their perspective, dealing with what was called then, obviously, arbitrary colonial boundaries drawn by colonial powers who forced different peoples into one geographical area and say, well, go on and govern yourselves, which created a challenge to a certain extent. But from our party's perspective, we understand the past, we understand the challenges in that instance, and we've accepted that reality right from the beginning. And we've always said, we want to be a constructive force. And I think one of the reasons why the Freedom Front Plus has succeeded, if you look at the ballot paper, for example, in 1994, a huge number of parties have come and gone. But we have been there throughout each and every election. Before every election, everybody says goodbye and we will never see you again. And then we are back after the election because we want to be and we continue to be a positive and a constructive force, because in the end we want to create a future for all our children. We share this wonderful, beautiful South Africa.
How do you think we can try and resolve those consequences that you say you appreciate as the Freedom Front Plus that have been brought by apartheid? Because, well, what the Constitution then expresses is the need for us to be intentional, or let me say for government to be intentional about addressing the injustices of the past. How do you think we can do that? Because I think even on the open line today, we were talking about the Employment Equity Act and the amendments to that, and these numerical targets that the Minister of Labour can set and ask even companies to set their own targets, because there's the situation is not changing in corporate South Africa at the top managerial level. You still see that there are some other races that are not being represented there. What beyond just the BEE has been abused, or what do you think is the Freedom Front Plus as a way we can try and level the playing field, because it's not leveled now?
Yeah. I think the first problem we have is that our recipe for nation building is wrong. And let me try to explain that. The recipe for nation building, is, from my perspective, has been around sport since 1994. You remember, first was the Rugby World Cup where Mr. Mandela was there and everybody was happy and it was wonderful. We won the World Cup. And then South Africa participated in the World Cricket Cup. We fell out in the quarterfinals. That was not a big success. Then we bid for the Olympics and everybody was all excited, the Soccer World Cup. And every time when we've got one of these sporting events, people get all excited and we unite as a nation. But it doesn't last. It's only while this is happening and then we start again looking at each other from different perspectives in a negative manner, I think. Our view is that nation building will only succeed if we really give credence to our logo and our slogan in South Africa to say unity in diversity, which means recognize the diversity. If that's why our Constitution says 11 official languages. We are a very diverse society, and find formulas where you recognize the diversity, where people can also express themselves in terms of their language, their culture, etc., etc. And the democratic system must also accommodate that one group doesn't feel threatened or being discriminated by each other, another group, if I can put it that way. Now the problem is it's a difficult challenge, and as you correctly point out what the Constitution says and what the government is trying to achieve with equity and with employment, etc., etc. But the facts on the ground indicate that it's not succeeding. Something is very seriously wrong with that approach. I looked last night at the report from the African Development Bank, and there's also a report from the International Monetary Fund. In 1994, South Africa had the strongest economy in Africa. At the moment, there are 44 of the 54 states in Africa that have a bigger and higher growth rate than South Africa. We fell completely behind. And if you look at unemployment, it's tragic that we sit with a 40% unemployment rate. If you come to the youth, it's about 60%. So clearly the economy is not succeeding, the economy is not growing. Now the ANC would argue to say, well, we need to implement these quotas, etc., then it will make a difference. I don't think so. I think the opposite is true. We must allow the economy to grow and see how can we inspire people, motivate companies to employ more people, to spend the capital that they've got in their accounts, not to keep that and not invest and expand their companies. I think when we can get to that and get the economy to really grow and get people employed and give people equal opportunities in that regard, I think we will succeed in eradicating the inequalities in South Africa.
So the other argument is that we have been there where there are some positives in as far as economic growth is concerned. In our democracy, there are some people who mention the Mbeki administration, some will mention just the beginning of the Zuma administration and how you started seeing the economy sort of strengthening before things started taking a downslide again. And even during that time, you still don't have a lot of black people becoming participants in the economy. So at some point also it becomes about dignity. Yesterday I went to my village and I went to, as I was passing to go see my parents, I went past my high school and I walked in and I spoke to some students there who go to that high school I went to, and one of them comes to me and says, I'm struggling. Mom is a domestic worker, and because as you know, about the opportunities that were not available for black people. There are a lot of black people that have done manual jobs, and as a result, they've not been able to take their kids to school. This kid says to me, Mom is a domestic worker. I'm repeating grade 12, not because I want to, because he did pass last year, with a diploma or with a bachelor, and he's doing it again because he's hoping for an extra distinction. But the whole purpose is that I just feel like I don't have an opportunity. My parents just do not have the resources to take me to school. And for me, that's another reminder of how, again, those are the remnants of that apartheid system where just black people didn't have opportunities. Now the cycle is going to repeat itself over and over again. Yes, government is trying with NSFAS, but that's not big enough to accommodate the millions of people out there whose parents just simply do not have the money to take their kids to school. So in that sense then is, how do we then change the picture? So if no employment equity, how do we change the picture so that even when the economy grows, there are people who are also growing with the economy, who also become owners and participants in that economy? Do you completely think that we have to scrap employment legislation, or do you think it needs to be tweaked, I guess is my question.
I think we need a balance. And that is perhaps where a compromise kind of platform could come in terms of a government of national unity. In other words, I honestly believe the answer cannot only be with legislation that enforces equity regardless. We need incentives for businesses to expand, for people to create and employ people. And you need both, because I think if we do get the economy to grow, then people will feel that they can employ more people and we will create more jobs, etc., etc. And I really understand the situation that you've mentioned with regard to dignity. It's tragic to see people sitting on the street corners and they don't have a job and they are desperate and they need to feed families. It's terrible. And then obviously I don't want even to go there, but if you look at how many people are employed in South Africa who are not from South Africa, those are jobs that South Africans basically should be employed in terms of a number of sectors. But there are various reasons why that is unfortunately not happening. So I think tweak is not good enough. We really need to, and that's why the government of national unity started off on a positive way, because the emphasis was on get this economy to grow and create jobs. And I think that is something that we all agree on. We may have differences as parties on many things, but on that we all agree, and we need to take that as a very serious thing. But we haven't sat down as parties and discussed how do we do that. And if one party says my way is the only way and another party says my way is also the only way, perhaps we will not get anywhere.
Yeah. After the headlines, I'd like you to share maybe some ideas as a Freedom Front Plus. What ways do you think would be your ways that you suggest that we fix it? Because my issue is it's not enough for us to just talk about unity and diversity. Companies are still refusing to transform. Like they are 30 years into democracy. The picture is not changing as much as it should be, which is why then government says, okay, let's introduce legislation. Let's introduce punitive measures. So we'll chat about that after the headlines. I've got some listeners as well with some inputs and questions as we continue this conversation with Dr. Corné Mulder, who is the president of the Freedom Front Plus. It's 10:33. Let's get the latest in Eyewitness News headlines. Fiso, hi.
Thanks, Clement. Good morning. The Mamelodi Magistrates Court has been hit by a power outage, delaying matters, including that of a suspect arrested in connection with the disappearance of a journalist and his partner. Police are still searching for Asarin Ndlovu and Zodwa Mdluli, who were last seen earlier this year. The suspect is part of 4 people who were arrested over the weekend. The bail hearing of the man accused of killing Walter Sisulu University student Sisonke Mbolekwa will be heard in the Mthatha Magistrates Court today. Manelisi Mampane, a residence manager at the institution, allegedly shot and killed Mbolekwa during a student protest on campus last month. He was meant to apply for bail last week, but this was put on hold due to a power outage at the courthouse. And a police crime scene analyst has called into question the eyewitness account of the train driver who was in the cab when anti-apartheid stalwart Chief Albert Luthuli was killed in 1967. Warrant Officer Brandon Burgess told the KwaZulu-Natal High Court in Pietermaritzburg yesterday that Luthuli's injuries, as documented in his autopsy, are inconsistent with the train driver's version of events. And those are the headlines this EWN, and more at 11 or as it happens.
EWN Traffic.
Traveling on the M1 South, we've got delays between Empire Road and Car Street due to roadworks. Please be on the lookout there. While on the M2 West, delays between the Crown Interchange and Main Reef Road. There's also slow-moving traffic on the N12 and the R24 West. This is between the Edenville Road exit and the Kilulis Interchange. If you're traveling towards Roodepoort via the N1 North, do expect delays between the Soweto Highway and the N17 due to an accident along that route. I'll have more updates for you at the top of the hour.
There's more EWN on air, online, and on the EWN app. Kruger Untamed camps leave no trace. When the season ends, they disappear, returning the land to the wild. But while they're here, they offer something rare. Raw wilderness, simple comfort, and 2 guided safaris a day, walking or driving. Return to wild at Chokwane River Camp and Satara Plains Camp. All meals and house drinks are included. No crowds, no clutter. Everything you need, nothing you don't. Book your place at KrugerUntamed.com.
Let's toast to Kumalo, Sitole and Associates.
Kumalo, that's me, a partner at the table. If I had it my way, I would have made it Kumalo, Sitole, Abobaba Nabo Andi, who helped with money for registration fees when I was short. And don't forget my grandfather, Umtungwa. He's usually in overalls, but today, uswenkile. They all worked hard to get me here. So kahle, they really are partners in this business.
Experience the power of mutuality. In 2024, we allocated 5.6 billion rand in profit share to our graduate professional members, because at PPS, success is better shared. Learn more at pps.co.za. PPS is a licensed life insurer, controlling company and authorized FSP.
Are you looking for the best savings on spectacles? At Specsavers, enjoy 1,500 Rand off when you get tested at South Africa's trusted and most established optical group. Get 1,500 Rand off all frames in store, or use your 1,500 Rand off on our leading lens enhancements, such as drive light lenses that reduce artificial glare whilst driving. Book online or call your nearest store today. Affordable eye care, Specsavers. T's and C's apply.
This isn't just a walk, it's a journey through memory, through meaning. The 702 Walk the Talk, hosted by Freedom Park in the city of Tshwane, returns on Sunday, the 27th of July. Walk from the hallowed grounds of Freedom Park to the southern lawns of the Union buildings and some of our capital city's most iconic landmarks. Choose from 8 kilometers, 6.7 kilometers in honor of Mandela Month, or 4 kilometers for something lighter. Entry is 360 Rand for adults and 200 Rand for kids under 12. There's no parking at the start or end, so book your park and ride from Joburg or Pretoria when you enter. Sign up on primemediaplus.com before the 26th of July. 702 Walk the Talk, hosted by Freedom Park in the city of Tshwane. Walk with meaning. Walk with us.
702.
The Clement Manyathela Show.
Let's walk the talk.
All right, 23 minutes now before 11 o'clock. We're in conversation with Dr. Corné Mulder, who is the president of the Freedom Front Plus. I've got some of your WhatsApps that have come on 072-702-1702. If you've got a question or you want to join this conversation, maybe you're a supporter of the Freedom Front Plus and you want to just appreciate the organization for what it does for its constituency, whatever you want to say. 072-702-1702. You can also contact us on 011-883-0702 if you want to call. Let's start with your WhatsApp voice notes.
Good morning, Clement. Can you please ask Dr. Mulder if the Freedom Front believes in transformation? Because I think they're against the likes of BEE. Thank you very much, Peter Maila Machaba from Letswata.
Hi, Clement and your guest. My question to your guest, Clement, is, don't you think that the failure of the GNU was the failure to formulate a communication team to communicate on behalf of the GNU? Instead, we are relying on political parties to communicate on behalf of the GNU. Thanks, David.
All right, thank you so much for your questions. Dr. Mulder?
Yes, thank you for the 2 responses, and I appreciate that. The first one with regard to, are we against transformation? Now, that's also an interesting question, because we can have a long debate. What does transformation mean? Transformation could mean that we move away from the previous dispensation that were not acceptable to anybody, and I would agree with that. But transformation also needs to be something that give certainty and accommodation to the minorities in South Africa. They should feel that they are part and parcel of that, and that should be part of transformation, and we would support that, obviously. We also understand that we need to make the playing field level for everybody. That can be done. So that is no problem in that sense.
How do you think we can do that? Just before we move into the next one, how do we level that playing field?
Well, that is the kind of discussion that we need. And as I quickly pointed out earlier, the current way that we tried to do that for the last 30 years did not succeed. The facts indicate that it did not succeed. We did not get the economy to grow. We've got rampant unemployment at the moment. So there's a serious problem in that regard. But the answer can also not be just on the other side where other parties say, but this is the answer. You need to find a unique compromise in terms of how we take this forward. But then we need to talk to each other, and we need to get the business community involved and the trade unions and individuals and see, how do we do this? How do we structure our economy? We've got all the potential in South Africa. We've got everything is possible. All the capital, the goodwill is there, but we don't have a silver bullet at this stage. And by the ANC, with all due respect, just continuing on their path, the facts indicate that it's not succeeding.
Yeah, so just to follow up on that, so is transformation just about growing the economy, or is transformation again about leveling the playing field? And sometimes when there are other external forces or even domestic self-inflicted issues that suppress economic growth, but you still are pushing for, historically disadvantaged people to be part of the economy, that's still transformation. Because I would imagine it's not just about, you don't transform because you want to grow the economy. In fact, with a history like ours, you transform because you come from a history where the other group had closed the doors for possibilities for other groups, and therefore you're trying to just make sure that everybody participates. And just as a follow-up on that, as you respond to it, what I want to understand also is, how do we then measure the success of transformation? Because I'm sitting where I'm sitting now because of transformation policies. I know Standard Bank CEO, the group CEO, Sim Chabalala, always tells me when I have him on the show, I've had him and he said, I am the group CEO of the biggest bank by assets on the continent. Why? Because of employment equity. I can mention other black CEOs who would never ordinarily have had the opportunity to be in those positions, but they are. Why? Because there's a government that has said, we cannot allow the situation to remain the same. We need other races to be involved because there are people who are suitably qualified who must be given opportunities. So when we say it's failed, how do we measure it?
I hear what you're saying with regard to yourself in terms of government policies and equity, but I would also want to believe, and I did some homework with regard to your background, etc., and I want to believe that you are there because of merit. I really want to believe. Exactly.
Yes. And transformation is not about lack of merit. Remember, I read, if you read the Employment Act, it says suitably qualified. So if I wasn't qualified, I wouldn't be here.
Exactly, but I think if there's a sufficient emphasis played on that part of equity as well, it will be easier basically to implement and to monitor that. No, I think in the end, if we can become a winning nation, and right, transformation is not only about the economy, it's about a much broader scale and a much broader situation. But you must also understand, there are young Afrikaner children that comes to me that were born 18 years ago, and we've got the New South Africa now for more than 30 years. And they say, but I don't understand. I am struggling. I do not qualify for this. I do not qualify for that. I also want equal opportunities to get forward in life. And from my perspective, we should come at some point where we give our children and our kids and everybody an equal chance to go forward. And we cannot indefinitely continue with certain practices on all sides that are to the detriment of our community and our societies out there. So how do you measure that? I think one would measure that in the end by being by visibly seeing that, by experiencing that, where you see people that excel, where they are in positions and where they do what they need to do in terms of the economy. I think there's no one out there that says, no, today we must keep this group out, we must keep that group out. I think we've all moved beyond that. If we want to make a successful country, and we've got the opportunity, South Africa, we should be the locomotive of Africa.
Do you think that we can have... Yeah, I'll give you an opportunity. Just my last question on that. Do you think there can be equal opportunities before the playing field is leveled? Let me give a practical example. ABSA, let's say, is looking for a CEO. Historically, ABSA has had white CEOs for decades and decades of its running. And now they're looking for a CEO, and there's a white CEO who applies for a job, suitably qualified. There's also a black CEO who applies for a job who's suitably qualified. And we live in a country where a lot of the JSE listed companies or a lot of the big corporate companies have really not given, let's say, they've not given black people or white women or black women opportunities to lead companies like that. In a case like that, what does a company like ABSA do? Because I would imagine that if ABSA is serious about transformation and wants inclusion and diversity, I think they go for the black person who is just as qualified as the white person. Why? Because historically they've had like over 45 white CEOs and never a black one. So there's an opportunity for them to be part of inclusion, to be part of intentional transformation. The white person, legitimately so, will try and cry foul and say, yeah, but I'm also qualified. Yes, but you explain to the white person that we hear that, but when you look at what the company has done is actually advantage people of your race for the last 50 years, and now we're trying to broaden and open the door to other races as well. Or maybe they give a white woman an opportunity for that matter, just so that there's more inclusion. So my question is then, can we have equal opportunities before we've leveled that playing field? Is that even possible?
Clement, I must be very careful now because I bank with ABSA. No, that's just in lighter vein. Don't worry about that. No, that is what affirmative action should basically be. If you've got two people applying for the situation and they're equally qualified, then affirmative action gives an opportunity to the person that has been previously disadvantaged, and that's how it should be. And I think that has been implemented for quite some time. The business community could come and explain themselves the steps that they take and that they do not take and that they should take. But I think in the end, there's so much potential at the moment. So if you look at the balance sheets of most companies, there are huge amounts of cash being waiting there that needs to be invested. And if you ask in terms of what we need in terms of making this economic growth kind of thing possible, I think one of those things would be policy certainty. And that takes me to expropriation without compensation. You know what it's like if somebody needs to invest, as a company of abroad or a company that needs to expand, as long as there's uncertainty, they hold back, and that is not to the best interest of anybody else. So there are a number of things that needs to be done to make the economy grow. If I could just react to the
GNU one.
The communications one. Absolutely correct. But the problem is this: if you do not come together beforehand and agree between, this was my platform, it didn't get sufficient support, that was yours, same. Now we've negotiated, and this government of national unity, and it should be a very stable, very sound government, because we have 287 seats out of 400. If we've agreed upon a platform, and this is our platform, then the first thing that should happen is there should be joint communications on behalf of the platform, on behalf of the government of national unity. But at the moment, you're absolutely correct. The caller is absolutely correct. The parties are communicating on their own, and each one wants to try and outwit the other, in the belief that at the next election they will once again retain a majority. It's not going to happen.
All right, it's 12 minutes now before 11 o'clock. After the break, more of your inputs and questions on calls and on the 702 WhatsApp line.
Remember when we were rocking just one bike, dreaming big for our delivery business?
Those days. Now we're here with a whole fleet of vans and trucks.
That's why it's important to have the right partner in your corner.
Of course. We owe to My Way Business Insurance. They've been our go-to for comprehensive cover, protecting our fleet while we deliver excellence.
Talk about going from pedal power to horsepower.
Move your business to My Way and get cover for your vans and trucks. Visit myway.co.za for a quote and do business your way. My Way is a licensed non-life insurer and FSP. T's and C's apply.
Hollywood Bet's exclusive Spina Zonke reels come with pulsating jackpot feels. Go all in with electrifying spins for a chance to win an exclusive Hollywood Bet's Durban July Boomtown experience, a signed Ronaldinho soccer jersey, or a share of 500,000 rands in cash. Bet R2 or more on selected booming game slots to start your climb to leaderboard glory. Bet now. T's and C's apply. Hollywood Sportsbook is a licensed betting operator. Hollywood Bets supports responsible gambling. No persons under the age of 18 years are permitted to gamble. Winners know when to stop. South African Responsible Gambling Foundation toll-free counseling line 0800 006 008 or WhatsApp help to 076 675 0710.
If you've got places to go and people to see, do it in a GAC. If you're looking for a little beauty, check out the new Suzuki. Or if it's something that's not for the meek, you'll want to get yourself a Jeep. But if you want to feel truly free, get yourself a new JAC. Whichever car starts your party, you're bound to find it at Bidvest McCarthy. We have all these brands and so much more. You're guaranteed to find what you're looking for. Bidvest McCarthy. Our people deliver. Always.
The Money Show.
Weekday evenings at 6. We've seen all of this fighting around the budget. We should be talking, in my view at least, about youth unemployment.
We have a consumption-driven economic policy of the ANC and of the Government of National Unity. They are not production and investment-driven economic policies. That's why the unemployment is not seen as a problem as long as you can give the unemployed something to munch on.
Well, Letzi Mbeki is a political economist.
The Money Show
on 702. Let's walk the talk.
The Money Show with Stephen Curtis is brought to you by ABSA CIB. ABSA is a proud lead sponsor of B20 South Africa 2025. ABSA is a registered FSP. Your story matters. 702, let's walk the talk.
You're with Clement Manyathela.
702, let's walk the talk.
9 minutes now before 11 o'clock. We continue our conversation with Dr. Corné Mulder, who's the president of the Freedom Front Plus. I want to go straight to you. In fact, before I go to your WhatsApps, there's a message here from Kingsley, Dr. Mulder. Kingsley said, "Good morning, Clement and Dr. Mulder. Please, can you ask Dr. Mulder if he thinks establishments like Kleinfontein on Orania are divisive in their existence, given the diverse country we live in, striving to heal old wounds and divisions? Secondly, does he believe that our political landscape is based on social cohesion or fear-based reactive politics?" That's a question from Kingsley in Germiston.
Yes, let me respond. I will start with the second part. I do not think that our attempts to social cohesion is based on fear or that kind of uncertainty. I think in the end, we must understand that we are a very diverse society. We've got different histories, we've got different languages, different cultures, different regions, etc. And the dynamic is, how do we live together? How do we live in harmony? How do we go forward? We need to find the right recipe. I'm of the view that the right recipe would be to recognize that diversity, not as an obstacle, but as a strength. A strength where we respect each other, where we take cognizance of our differences, etc. But it will be building blocks to take us further in a positive manner. With regard to Kleinfontein and Orania, no, I don't think that they are divisive. I really don't. If you look at the Constitution, Section 30, Section 31 allows communities to exercise their culture, etc., not to the detriment of anybody else, not to be outside the Bill of Rights, etc. Obviously, they are now being focused upon. The EFF has decided to make an issue of that. The irony is that those communities have good relations with other communities. I know Orania, for example, has good relations and cooperation with other traditional black communities in the Eastern Cape, where they go and they support and they indicate and they show how things could be done and how to make yourself self-sufficient, because the emphasis there is to become self-sufficient. If the state fails in a certain extent to deliver certain services, we would like to see more communities that take responsibility for themselves. I don't think it needs to be divisive. If those things are there to be divisive, I won't support it.
Yeah, and what if the places also say, no black people allowed here, we just want our own people?
No, they don't say that. That's the irony. They really don't say that. They say that you are welcome, but you must understand, in this community, we practice our culture, we practice our traditions, etc., etc. I guess I could tomorrow move to Nkandla, and I may feel a little bit out of kingdom, but I'm welcome to do so, and that's basically what it says. It has to be within the provisions of the Constitution.
But you're not going to see the face of, because there are some people who, and I suppose a lot of people have not really been to Orania, who then make up all sorts of perceptions about it. But for instance, people will say, I don't want to get there and I see the apartheid flag being displayed, or I don't want to get there and I see Verwoerd's portraits being displayed, because it's for them it feels like there's apartheid nostalgia and praising the people who really brought a lot of devastation for black people in this country.
No, I understand that you won't find the old flag in Orania at all. It's not there. There's a different separate flag, or it's just a cultural symbol of that community to a certain extent, but that's not it comes as part of our history basically, and I can explain that. So I understand that they want to be a positive community, and they are a positive community, developing, trying to get self-sufficient, etc., and I think one should welcome that. And if we can use that model to get society and communities to become more self-sufficient and to not have to rely on a failing state, I think that should be positive.
Please explain that flag, because I think there's some people who've seen when you march as a Freedom Front Plus, for instance, you're taking part in protests, and they see they see it as an old apartheid flag that is being waved at the marches. Can you just explain that?
Sure, let me try to explain. The flag that they use, and that is also the party's flag of the Freedom Front Plus, does have the colors orange, white and blue, and then on the side there's a banner, a green stripe as well. That is our flag, that is our emblem. Now that flag, the origin of that flag is from 1572, when in Europe there was a gentleman called the Prince of Orange, and he was in a religious war between the Protestants and the Catholics, etc., etc. So if you look at the history, the flag that came with Jan van Riebeeck in 1652 historically was just orange, white and blue. The South African flag and the Union flag is something else, because it's only the orange, white and blue, and then they added the British Union Jack and the flags of the former Boer republics. That is not part of this flag. And interesting enough, people ask, but why the color green? What is green doing there? And then we explain by saying you will find the color green in 44 of the 54 countries' flags in Africa. And to us, it symbolizes people who came originally from Europe and other places, but who have made over more than 300 years Africa their home. We became Africans. I quite often say to people internationally when I have interviews, etc., I'm not a European. I'm an African, and if I have to speak in racial terms, I'm a white African. But Africa is my place. I don't have a second passport or family somewhere. I've become an African. And most Afrikaners obviously have been in Africa far longer than Americans have been in America, Australians in Australia. We've become part of Africa. That's why we've called ourselves and named ourselves to our continent, Afrikaners, Africa. That's who we are.
Dr. Corné Mulder, thank you so much for making time for us.
Thank you, Clement. It was a privilege to participate in your show and continue the good work you are doing. Thank you very much.
Looking forward to our further engagements. I really appreciate you spending an hour with us this morning. It's 3 minutes now before 11 o'clock.
Dear Journal, adulting, day 3,700 and whatever. Just bought a bunch of supplements I can't pronounce to try and fix my sleep schedule. What a game changer. So chuffed I spotted them when I was doom scrolling at 11:53 p.m.
Finally learning about mental health. Get covered at pineapple.co.za. It's convenient and like 19 Rand a day, so it's 100% the insurance for you. Underwritten by Old Mutual Alternative Risk Transfer Insurer Limited, a licensed non-life insurer and authorized FSP. Premiums are risk profile dependent.
Honey, what are you doing?
I'm stretching for tonight.
I thought you're not dancing at bachelorette parties anymore.
Baby, we need the money to put Johnny through matriek mos.
And what's the police uniform for?
The clients feel safer when I wear it.
No man, just sell your bakkie to We Buy Cars. They give the best prices and they pay you within minutes.
Okay, but can I just go and dance one more time, please? You know how much I love it.
No, the buyer's already on his way here.
Wow, okay.
Strapped for cash? Just sell your vehicle to We Buy Cars. The easiest way to sell your car by far.
To walk the talk is to turn words into meaningful actions. And it's what we at 702 are committed to doing every day. We're also committed to following the rules set out by the Broadcasting Complaints Commission's Code of Conduct. To give you balanced programming, fair comment, and accurate news. But if we stumble along the way and you feel we're not living up to the code, let us know on comment@702.co.za. And if after that you're still not happy, you can direct your complaint in writing to the Broadcasting Complaints Commission. PO Box 412365, Craig Hall 2024. For more, visit bccsa.co.za.
Africa takes center stage as the world's produce pioneers gather to reimagine their future of food at the World Union of Wholesale Markets 2025 conference, 14th to the 16th of May at the Sandton Convention Center. Catch 702 in conversation with the Joburg Market on 702 Drive with John Pellman this afternoon for exclusive insights and updates from the official media launch. The launch offers a sneak peek at the upcoming international conference and highlights Joburg's bold vision to position Africa as a global leader in fresh produce. Don't miss it on 702.
Clement is on X
at The Real Clement M.
It's 11 o'clock.
This is EWN.
Good morning, I'm Sfiso Zulu. The Mamelodi Magistrates Court has been hit by a power outage, delaying matters, including that of a suspect arrested in connection with the disappearance of a journalist, Asari Ndlovu, and his partner, Zodwa Mdluli. The couple has not been found since they went missing earlier this year. 4 suspects were arrested over the weekend, including the man who was last seen with Ndlovu and Mdluli. Tandoluhle Ngobo has more.
Family members, friends, colleagues of the missing couple arrived early in court this morning with hope that more information will be divulged about how their loved ones went missing. Despite a power outage in court, those gathered here say they will not lose steam and they are crossing fingers that electricity will be restored. Court officials have not communicated what the cause of the power outage is and whether the matter will proceed today or not. 3 other suspects linked to this case will appear in court in KwaMhlanga later this week. Tandoluhle Ngobo, Eyewitness News.
In another court case affected by a power outage recently is that of a Walter Sisulu University employee who is accused of killing a student at the institution. The Mthatha Magistrates Court is today expected to hear the bail application of Manelisi Mampane, a residence manager at the institution. Mampane allegedly shot and killed Sisonke Mbolekwa during a student protest on campus last month. He was meant to apply for bail last week, but this was put on hold due to the power outage in court. Nhlanhla Mabaso reports from the Eastern Cape.
Manelisi Mampane is charged with murder and the attempted murder of another student, as well as the unlawful possession of a firearm and ammunition. Last week, the Mthatha Magistrates Court postponed the matter to resolve its electricity issues. Investigating officer Corné Mulder is expected to testify this morning. Students from the institution have since vowed to intensify their call for justice in the matter. Nhlanhla Mabaso, Eyewitness News, Mthatha, in the Eastern Cape.
The alleged killers of Cape Town controversial businessman Mark Liffman are expected back in the George Magistrates Court today. The alleged underworld figure was shot and killed in the town in November last year. It's alleged 2 gunmen approached him as he left the local mall and shot him in the parking lot. Ntutuzelo Nene has more.
Hendrik Jacobs and Gert Besaidenoud were arrested shortly after Liffman's murder in Uniondale, about an hour outside George. At one of their last court appearances in December last year, we heard that they moved to an unnamed prison for safety reasons. The court denied them bail in January, citing that the state had a compelling case against the pair. During their bail application, Jacobs and Besaidenoud accused the police of abuse at the time of their arrest. Their bail appeal is expected to be argued in the Western Cape High Court on Thursday. Ndutuzelo Nene, Eyewitness News in George.
And a police crime scene analyst has called into question the eyewitness account of the train driver who was in the cab when anti-apartheid stalwart Chief Albert Luthuli was killed in 1967. Warrant Officer Brandon Burgess told the KwaZulu-Natal High Court in Pietermaritzburg yesterday that Luthuli's injuries, as documented in his autopsy, are inconsistent with the train driver's version of events. Burgess was charged with retracing Lutuli's steps on that fateful day, measuring out the accident scene and reconsidering the evidence presented in the first inquest. Lindsay Dentlinger reports.
A fractured rib and skull and a broken left elbow, the only injuries 3 doctors noted on the body of Albert Lutuli. Crime scene analyst Brendan Burgess says when considering the evidence presented in the first inquest, the injuries don't match the eyewitness account of the train driver. The court was shown 2 videos of Burgess's work, which included a visit to a train yard in Pretoria, where the same model of locomotive is still stored, and a briefing he received by a train expert on how it operates. Burgess said for Lutuli to have sustained the injuries as recorded, he would have had to be walking in the same direction in which the locomotive was travelling, despite the train driver claiming he was walking towards it. Burgess further noted that Lutuli did not sustain any injuries on or above his right shoulder, despite the train driver claiming he was hit on this side. The hearing continues. Lindsay Dentlinger, Eyewitness News.
Gold is trading at $3,358.13 an ounce. The rand is at 18.27 to the dollar, 24.29 to the pound, 20.68 to the euro. Brent crude oil is at $61.21 a barrel.
There's bumper-to-bumper traffic on the N3 North between the Klulis Interchange and Modderfontein Road. While travelling on the M2 West, do expect delays between the Crown Interchange and Main Reef Road, and there's also queuing traffic along the M1 South between Empire Road and Car Street. That's due to roadworks.
A partly cloudy day in store for Gauteng. The temperatures will peak at highs between 20 and 21 degrees. The top story in EWN this hour. The Mamelodi Magistrates Court has been hit by a power outage, delaying matters, including that of a suspect arrested in connection with the disappearance of a journalist, Asarin Ndlovu, and his partner, Zodwa Mdluli.
EWN, in touch, in tune, and independent. For the latest, visit ewn.co.za or download the EWN app.
Tell us what we need to know.
702 Listens.
You're with Clement Manyathela
On 702.
Let's Walk the Talk, streaming on the Prime Media Plus app,
DSTV channel 856,
92.7 and 106 FM.
Six minutes after 11 o'clock. Dumelang, welcome to the third and final hour of the Clement Manyathela Show. Thank you for staying with us here on 702. Time now for a World of Work feature.
702.
World of Work.
So on our World of Work feature this morning, we're discussing how to grow leaders in the workplace. Leaders are groomed by other leaders. To grow leaders in the workplace, organizations can implement various strategies, whether it's mentoring, whether it's coaching, leadership development programs often come in quite handy. And these programs can focus on developing essential skills such as communication, emotional intelligence, and just the ability to motivate and inspire other people. In fact, experts say such programs are quite important to create a leadership succession pipeline. As I said to you earlier today, I do think that sometimes you've got companies that don't take leadership roles seriously. How many companies do we know of who have appointed people in leadership positions without training them, without taking them through leadership programs? How many of us are actually being led right now by people who have not taken people skills training, people who have not done essential skills development and undergone those programs? And sometimes we wonder why there are people who are leaving companies, not because they don't want to work for those companies, but because there are managers in those companies that simply don't know how to lead. So that's the question really that I'm asking now, and I think we deal with this a lot. So have you had a manager who saw and groomed perhaps your leadership skills? And if you're a manager yourself, how do you groom other leaders? And I'd like you to just share your experiences with us on 011-883-0702. You can send us a WhatsApp voice note as well on 072-702-1702. And maybe some of you are being led currently by someone who has not taken any leadership programs. They don't know how to deal with people. And I think sometimes that's the mistake companies make. They think because you're so brilliant at your job, then you can just be a leader. They can just put you in charge on managing people. But that's a different skill set. It requires different skills. And to just place someone there because they are a great engineer or a great miner or whatever industry you're in, then there becomes a problem, because you're more interested in just their merit and how they're able to do the job, and not so much about how you empower them to be able to work with other people and manage people. So give us your thoughts, give us a call, or send us a WhatsApp voice note. Brian Mhlanga is the executive coach and leadership development practitioner joining us in studio. Brian, welcome back to the show. Good morning.
Good morning, and thank you very much for having me.
Thank you for making time. So we're talking about how to grow great leaders in the workplace. What does it really mean to grow leaders within an organization? Because some companies think, just because Brian is great at broadcasting, let's make him the manager or the station manager, or because you're a great accountant, they make you a leader to lead people just because of that skill set you have.
Yeah. So you often, what you're talking to right now is the confusion between being technically competent, right?
Yeah.
Being good at what you do. So in this case, you're a great broadcaster. Would that make you a great station manager or programs manager? We don't know. There is the potential that you could, but there's also a potential that you could not. If you do not have skills such as people skills, but even over and above people skills, there's a lot that it takes to be a leader, right? So you could be a good manager also to some extent. You could be that classroom monitor or that prefect who's able to say, you're planning, you're controlling, you're doing all the organizing. That's fine. At a basic level, that's okay. However, it is not good enough for you to be a leader. There is more that is required for you to be a leader.
Okay, so why is leadership growth so critical for the trajectory of any organization?
I think organizations are living beings, right? They are not they're not organisms that are static. They are always developing, and especially in this context where we're operating right now, where we've got multiple generations in a space, right? You've got somebody who's 65 or 70, and you've got somebody who's just 21 who's in the same space. It's important that in that particular context we are able to relate to one another from one generation to the next, but you're also able to lead somebody who's very different from you, from a different worldview, different needs. They have different things that they want from an organization and from a company and from what they would call the workplace to what you and I would also require and want. And also there are also different expectations, obviously, from businesses and organizations from us as individuals.
What makes great leaders in today's work environment? I think sometimes employees just want a leader who is less rigid,
Bearing.
Yeah, when I ask for a raise, they're going to give it to me. When I ask to work from home 5 days a week, they're just going to say, it's okay. What really makes a great leader?
So in a context so let's look at the context that you and I find ourselves in this world of work, where there's a lot of toxicity, right? There's a lot of bullying, right? Where issues of well-being and wellness have become top of the priority, but also in a context where people want career advancement. What makes a good leader is somebody who's able to hold the space, right? who's able to hold difficult conversations, somebody who's able to even make me believe in a vision and in a future that I can't see, and make me very excited that I want to be part and parcel of this team. Have you ever been in an organization where you find out the team next door is very excited and they're very happy? You realize that there's a vision, there's direction. Conflict is there, but it is managed, right, in a healthy manner. They're not afraid of courageous conversations. Your roles are very clear. What is expected of you and what is expected from you is very clear. And so those are some of the elements. And but also you realize that it's a human-first organization where people realize that in as much as we are about productivity and in as much as we are about crunching the numbers, the human being is still at the center of
What's
all
the
this.
limit of that? And I say that because mental health is not something that we're only experiencing now. We just have the language for it, really, to express how we're feeling, whether you're feeling depressed or you're really feeling overwhelmed. And it's beginning to affect you emotionally. But I sometimes find that we use that to take advantage of the position the company has taken to be human-centric, where you had a breakup with your boyfriend. Now what? You must be off for 2 weeks because I'm feeling depressed because I broke up with my partner. I'm not trying to minimize the impact of that on anyone's mental health. I'm just trying to say, where do we draw the line? I have seen before, I've literally witnessed a colleague who did break up with a partner, and they went to the boss and says, I broke up with a partner because they expected to be given some time off. And when the boss says no, then what? The boss is not human-centric, doesn't care much about your emotions and your productivity in the company.
Okay, so on one hand, there's the whole...
there, but sometimes is
what
I'm saying.
Yeah. No, I get it. So on one hand, we have issues around well-being. I find the mental health a little bit stigmatic to some extent, but there are issues around wellness, and we're not just talking to your mental health here. We're looking at maybe you sprinkled your ankle when you were running on the weekend, and you just want to get to a physio, right? So there are people within our organizations and within our businesses who are weaponizing well-being.
Yes.
And they are making it very difficult for those who are leaders to be sensitive to some of those matters, right? Because they are weaponizing it to an extent that it's now even become abused. Similar with a lot of other things that are happening in our communities and in our societies. So, for example, the whole issue of GBV. There are people that are weaponizing GBV and who cry wolf when there is no wolf, right? In as much as it's a real concern. Right. So that's a problem in itself. However, I think there has to be a line that is drawn in the sand when it comes to issues of care. At what point, if you can't do the work, Clement, is it now an issue of incapacity? Then we go the incapacitation route because we've done everything that we've done for you. You can't be crying well-being and health issues over a 6-month period.
Oh, some have done that.
Yeah, and that's where the abuses come in, right? And so when businesses start saying now it's an issue of incapacity, then you start crying that they are not human-centered. There's a problem there.
And also, where's your personal responsibility? Because the company
and accountability
can only go
also.
so much.
Correct.
Company can say, okay, you need some time off. Okay, you need to go to a hospital.
Correct.
Okay, sure, we get this. Okay.
Correct.
At some point, where's your personal accountability? Where's your own personal development and intention to be better, to do what is right so you can go back to work?
Yeah.
Because you have to work.
And let's not forget, you are in a contractual relationship.
That's it.
Let's be
You
honest
signed a
about
contract.
that. Yeah. And so that contractual relationship is governed by certain ways of being and doing things.
Yeah. And we're not saying we don't care about wellness. We just say sometimes it gets abused. I've seen it abused.
There are people who abuse it. There are people who abuse it.
Yeah. So what do you think are some of the common mistakes that companies make when it comes to growing leadership talent internally? What I find is that, there are great companies that want to grow leaders internally. Even there's a succession plan. So they'll tell you, okay, you are here in 5 years, we want to see you here.
Yeah.
But sometimes they think it just happens naturally. So when that 5-year hits, you just suddenly move to that management position or to the higher management position. But there's no interest in equipping you with the skills to do that job. So now you end up treating people just so terribly, or you end up not being able to perform at a managerial level. As you said, technically you are competent, but you're managing a bigger team now and you just don't have the skills for it. What are some of the common mistakes you think companies make when they are growing leadership internally? And what should they be considering more when they are approaching that?
So there's the first myth, which is leadership development is a linear thing. And I call that a myth. It's not a linear thing. And by that, I mean, you don't get it right by going through all the ranks and doing the right things, right? To some extent, for some people who've walked that path, it could have worked. But in this world of work, where we're dealing with a lot of complexity within organizations, within human beings, within how we do business, there's a lot of volatility added to that, right? There's a lot of ambiguity that we are dealing with. We need to stop thinking and regarding leadership development in a linear way. And I think we now need to start looking at what are some of the skills that are required for this particular role, and where are the gaps that Clement has. So for example, Clement is very good with his broadcasting, and now we want him to be the station manager. We need him to have people skills. But it's not enough for him to have people skills, right? He needs to have strong business acumen skills, right?
Yes.
Can he close commercial dealings?
Can I interpret the balance sheet?
Yeah.
Income statement.
Yeah. But can you even can you interpret figures? Can you look at it? Do you understand what they mean in as much as you can read them, right? And what does that mean for a business? So that's very important. But over and above that, because you're now a leader, your role is not just facing inward. You also need to be looking outward, right? So strategy is a big thing. What does strategy mean and look like for you? Can you play strategy? Can you think tactically? And many leaders, you find out that they have one muscle that is really fully developed and the other muscles are quite underdeveloped. So they probably have very good people skills. They can motivate. They hear and listen to the people. But the business is suffering, right?
Yeah. All right, it's 21 minutes now after 11 o'clock. After the break, I'll go to some of your WhatsApps, your texts, your calls as well. We're talking about growing leaders in the workplace. How do you grow leaders in the workplace? Maybe you're an employer yourself and you want to talk about the strategy and the approach that you've taken in as far as growing leaders internally within the company is concerned. How have you gone about doing that? 011-883-0702. Maybe you want to share your thoughts with us on how, some people in your company were just parachuted into leadership positions without being equipped with the skills they need, taken through the training programs, and now people are just leaving because, what is this? There's just no vision. There's no strategy. There's no, where are we going? Give us your thoughts on 011-883-0702 or send a WhatsApp on 072-702-1702. With all the recent headlines, it's time for some good news. A 25-year-old man, Tyler, is smiling all the way to the bank. He switched to Outsurance and now saves a whopping 718 Rand a month on his 2021 Ford Figo 1.5. Outsurance clients always get something out. Get a quote today and see how much they could save you. Make today the day you switch and save with Outsurance. Call 08600 60,000 or visit outsurance.co.za. You always get something out. A licensed insurance FSP. T's and C's online.
Imagine if you could save time like you save money. A second here, a minute there. Type a little faster, walk a little faster. Or you could stop scrolling on the internet. Just think of all the hours you'll save. Now what if you could take all that time and invest it? Watch it grow. Until eventually, one day, you'd have so much time that you wouldn't know what to do with it all. But unfortunately, time doesn't work like that. It can't be stored or banked. And unlike money, you can't make it back. That's why after 50 years of investing, we've learned that time is the greatest gift of all. And the good news is, if you invest early, time gives you money. And then money gives you more time to do whatever you want to do, even if it is scrolling on the internet. Ellen Gray, long-term investing. Ellen Gray is an authorized FSP.
My family's struggling with snotty noses and phlegmy coughs.
Oh no! Have you tried ACC?
ACC 600 is a convenient one-a-day effervescent tablet from 14 years of age, or now also in a no-water-needed, fruity-flavored sherbet-like granules that dissolve in your mouth. Ideal for the on-the-go adult. Ask for ACC 600 effervescent or oral powder at your nearest pharmacy to get rid of the snotties and flemmings. And trust, if it doesn't say ACC, it's not ACC.
702 and Absa Home Loans are bringing to light the property matters you want to know more about. This Wednesday, we're talking about the roles and responsibilities of tenants versus landlords. So tune into the masterclass with Relebogile Mabocha on 702 for an in-depth discussion about all you need to know before getting into a lease. The masterclass with Relebogile Mabocha this Wednesday, brought to you by Absa Home Loans on 702. Absa is an authorized financial services and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
702.
World of Work.
24 minutes after 11 o'clock, we're speaking about how to grow leaders in the workplace with Brian Mhlanga, who is an executive coach and leadership development practitioner. I've got lots of your voice notes on 072 702 702. Let's take a listen.
Good morning, Clement. What a nice topic. You know, Clement, talking about this, I have done the leadership development course. I'm in a middle management. I've done already 2. I've done a few courses in leadership and development, but my boss has none. And he's treating me so bad. Sometimes he's a narcissist. He will just dismiss me in front of other people, tell me that I cannot think, whatever, in the middle of the meeting. So it becomes a problem. And I've got MBA and a master's. So you will also use that against me to say, yeah, you master nothing. You cannot master anything, even this MBA, whatever. So it becomes a problem because some people they don't wanna learn and whatever. So they like I work for the soldiers. So they get things through the ranks and whatever, and they don't go through this thing. So it becomes a problem. Really, it's really. But this is a nice topic. Thank you.
Clement, good day, and your guests, a great show. Look, we have leaders who do not give a damn about leadership development because they say they were never developed themselves, therefore they do not have an obligation to develop others. And you also get another type of leaders who says when they leave company, they want to point to the weaknesses of the company to say, you see, since I left, there's leadership vacuum, and that's bad. That's being short-sighted, bad. Thanks, Clement.
Yo, Clement, and your guest there. I had a manager. She took me from Joburg to Hermanus as an assistant manager. When you get there, the people skills. She was literally shouting on the floor with people to a point where a customer took her aside to say, "You're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to take this person, whatever they did in the office, and then talk to them nicely." But in terms of her product knowledge, structure of the shop, it was on retail, it was amazing. But the people skills, oh my God, she broke everyone. Everyone was just emotionally drained by her. But her personal skills were amazing. But people skills, I still remember that lady. Yes, you.
Yeah, hey. Okay, so how important, Brian, is mentorship and coaching to help potential leaders? So, because maybe if you're thinking, skills development programs, but you can start somewhere. So is mentoring and maybe coaching maybe where you can begin?
Yeah, so as a discipline, coaching and even mentoring itself, they are good and they could really fill those gaps that one could have as a leader. And they could really give you the capabilities and they're very good for capacitation. However, for them to be successful, there has to be one condition that is really, really, really glaring. And in this particular context, the individual has to be open to it and has to want it. So, because,
So don't do it because boss suggests.
No.
Okay.
If you go there and somebody is going there because they have been asked, and they usually, and you realize that in the past, coaching and to some extent mentoring has been used as a form of remedial action within organizations. And generally, it was used when there were performance issues. And now, there's already a stigma attached to that. So an organization then says, we want you to consider coaching as part of your leadership development. If the person is not onboarded correctly, it could also have devastating effects on them, and because people are going to think, why I want to coach? Like, what is really going on? Right? Because of the stigma attached, because it then sort of suggests to the individual that you are incapable.
Hi, Clement. Interesting discussion. And there's a lot of ways that it actually intertwines with your open line this morning with regards to affirmative action. The company I worked for in the past developed us. We went for supervisory development programs, MDP, IR, and little did I know it would shape me for what I'm doing right now. So I'm grateful for that. And it's something that needs to happen in most businesses for us to be able to implement that affirmative action. Thanks, Rafi and Box.
Oh, thank you so much for that. And there's nothing wrong with real world experience where people are learning on the job, right? But there are certain things you just need for you to be an efficient, functioning leader.
Yeah, I think we need to also be, the other side of leadership, right, is we also need to realize that they are humans and they are prone to make mistakes. They'll fumble and they'll make all the mistakes. And so there's a certain amount of generosity that is required from both sides. So the same generosity that maybe the leader would require from the team that is being led is the same generosity maybe that the leader should also be infusing and injecting into the team.
Yeah. Okay, how do people get a hold of you? You know how many people contact me and say, Clement, please can you coach me? I'm like, where did people get the idea that I can coach people?
Yeah.
I'm not qualified to do that.
You have to be qualified.
I'm not certified to do that. But also, I've never had interest to coach people. I don't know where I would begin.
So people jump in and they see somebody and maybe what they're looking for and they're expressing it with a different lingo or language is mentoring, right? But coaching is actually a discipline. It's a profession.
I'm talking an executive. Yeah, who says, hey, can you help? Because I need a bit of coaching. I was like, no. But, okay, Brian, how do they get a hold of you? You're the people they should talk to.
Okay, so my website is www.brianmhlanga.com. And the email there is admin@brianmhlanga.com. And we can take it from there. Yeah.
Wonderful. It's 11:32. Thank you so much, Brian, for making time for us. Mbali, good morning.
Thanks, Clement. A very good morning. A memorial service for 3 Free State police officers who died in the Henops River will be held today. The official service taking place in Bloemfontein comes just days after authorities recovered a vehicle that the police were travelling in. Constables Boipelo Senoge, Cebe Kululinda and Gamogetse Base died in a crash in Centurion while on their way to Polokwane. Messages between Eastern Cape Judge President Salbi Mbenenge and High Court Secretary Andiso Mengo are said to have moved from a professional tone to a sexual one. This is the testimony of forensic and legal linguist Dr. Zakira Dockrot, who is before the Judicial Conduct Tribunal, currently in session in Sandton. The tribunal is probing sexual harassment allegations against the Judge President after Mengo accused him of making unwanted sexual advances towards her. And the Mamelodi Magistrate Magistrates Court has been hit by a power outage, delaying matters, including that of a suspect arrested in connection with the disappearance of a journalist, Sierin Ndlovu, and his partner, Zodwa Mdluli. The couple has still not been found after they went missing earlier this year. Those are the headlines, this EWN and more at midday or as it happens.
EWN Traffic.
While traveling on the M1 South, we still have got delays between Empire Road and the Car Street exit. That's due to roadworks that are taking place there. There's also queuing traffic on the M2 West between the Crown Interchange and Main Reef Road. While traveling on the N3 North, do expect delays between Van Buren Road and Modderfontein Road. In fact, a stop and go there. That's due to roadworks that are taking place along this route. Traffic lights are still out of order in Modderfontein at Modderfontein Road and Van Riebeeck Road. They're also out in four ways at Winnie Mandela Drive and the N1, as well as in Rand Park Ridge at the N1 and Bayers Nodia Drive. Please be on the lookout and drive with care. We'll have more updates for you at the top of the hour.
There's more EWN on air, online, and on the EWN app.
Celebrate Mother's Day on Sunday, the 11th of May at Nairock's Winter Sculpture Fair. Experience an Italian-flavored day out with art, music, wine, gourmet food, and good living. The Johannesburg Philharmonic Orchestra will entertain with string quartet cameos through the day, and there's an appearance by Italian soprano Greta Doveri. Wines from the Cape Wine Cellar Master's Choice will be available for tasting in patches with gourmet food from Italy provided by the Epicurean Emporium and Benny's Bar. Limited tickets are available from nyroxarts.com. Nyrox is a private, not-for-profit foundation to benefit the arts. All income is used to maintain the grounds, the artist residency program, and artist support.
Andile, the CEO of a multinational corporation, is driving home with his daughter.
Dad, why is the tooth fairy so stingy?
Stingy? Well, she makes sure everyone gets something.
Does everyone at your company get something?
Yes, they're covered by Old Mutual Corporate's employee benefits.
Even Abdul?
Of course, he gets retirement benefits.
And Sisampo on that big machine.
She gets group risk cover if that big machine hurts her.
Wow, that's amazing, Dad.
Visit oldmutual.co.za/employee benefits and go from questions to solutions for your employees with Old Mutual Corporate. Old Mutual Life Assurance Company SA Limited is a licensed FSP and life insurer. T's and C's apply.
Brush, stroke, paint, color, protect, and admire. From roof paint to exterior textures and interior silk, Warrior Paints has it all. The product range and stylish colors are amazing. And what's more, Warrior Paints has crushed prices for incredible savings. Enjoy that good old-fashioned personal service you deserve. For price, quality, variety, and service, Warrior Paints is streets ahead. Warrior Paints. Affordable, lasting luxury.
Africa takes center stage at the world's produce pioneers gather to reimagine the future of food at the World Union of Wholesale Markets 2025 conference, 14th to the 16th of May at the Sandton Convention Center. Catch 702 in conversation with Joburg Market on 702 Drive with John Pellman this afternoon for exclusive insights and updates from the official media launch. The launch offers a sneak peek at the upcoming international conference and highlights Joburg's bold vision to position Africa as a global leader in fresh produce. Don't miss it on 702.
Coming up
on 702 Afternoons.
23 minutes before 12 o'clock, coming up between 1 and 3 p.m., 702 Afternoons with Jono, standing in for Lebohile Mabocha. How are you doing, Kabazela?
Hey, Clem, I'm very, very good, my buddy.
What's popping,
you
Vandag?
well?
I'm good.
Lovely. So today we're going to give another SPAR 5,000 Rand voucher to a home helper who is a hero of many, many homes. So we're asking people to nominate and send us voice notes on 0727021702. And then if you're lucky enough, we'll pick that one and then we'll get the home helper up online and have a chat with them. So that's coming up on the show. Then in the open line talker, I've been following a little bit today this judicial inquiry into Eastern Cape Judge President Selby Mbenenge, who's accused of sexual harassment. And they had in part of the evidence today a person looking at emojis and who studies emojis. So I wanted to have a conversation about the use of emojis in conversation whether it would be WhatsApp or emails, and some of the understandings that we have with certain emojis. So, I mean, for example, there's this emoji, which is the pinched finger emoji.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in different countries and cultures, that means completely different things, which I don't know. I always thought if you do this, it means like maybe it's very small, something small,
Mm-hmm.
But that's my interpretation. So when it comes to these emojis, my interpretation versus your interpretation could be very different. And then there's hot water and trouble between us. So we'll have a chat a little bit about emojis in conversation. Then at the 13:40, we've got the tech feature today. And we're going to be looking at the booming baby tech industry. Now, if you have a baby, you might have all these gadgets around your house that maybe help you with your parenting, but are all of these necessary? So we'll have a chat with an expert today. His name is Wesley Dipoko, and he is a technology analyst. Then after 2 o'clock, there's always a series on the show, and they start a new series today, which is the series edition on finding new ways to make money. I mean, we all want to find new ways to make money in this kind of economy. So we're going to be chatting to the CEO of Job Crystal. Her name is Sasha Knott. And it's basically to discuss the new skill economy, which is a dynamic landscape where you have the ability to learn, adapt, and apply practical skills where these can open up different income streams for you. So we'll learn a little bit about that. And then as always on a Tuesday after the 2:30 news, that's the car feature. And today we're going to be chatting to Nicole Lowe. And he's got quite an interesting one about if you watch movies and let's say there's some hitman who booby traps a car. And then you get in the car and you drive and then the brakes don't work or the accelerator doesn't want to come off the pedal. He's going to debunk some of those things to say, is that really, really realistic or not? Plus, we'll take all your technical issues on your cars.
All right. Looking forward to that. That's 7:02 afternoons with Kabazela between 1 and 3 p.m. in Forelebogilo today. It's 20 minutes now before 12.
702.
Health and wellness.
So, on our health and wellness feature today, we're talking about body dysmorphia. This body dysmorphia disorder, which is a mental health condition that disrupts how you see and feel about your body and appearance. But we've got a guest who knows more about it, who's going to chat to us. And as we try and understand more what it is and how to deal with it, as always, I want you to also join in the conversation. So have you or your loved one experienced body dysmorphia disorder before? What shape did that take? How did you respond to it? How have you overcome that disorder if you've been able to do that? 011-883-0702 is the number to dial, or you can send us a WhatsApp voice note on 072-702-1702. Batseba Motoa is a clinical psychologist who is going to guide us through this chat. Batseba, thank you for making time. Good morning.
Good morning, Clement. Thank you very much for inviting me.
So what exactly is body dysmorphia disorder, or BDD, as some say?
So BDD, okay, so remember in psychiatry we have like umbrellas of disorders, like your mood, your cognitive. So this is actually a disorder that falls under the obsessive compulsive related disorder. We know we usually loosely talk about a person being OCD. So because it falls under this category, this is a category that is related with, rituals and these intrusive thoughts and, one's need to control, these thoughts. So meaning that BDD is also, as much as the person is obsessed with their features, being obsessed with their features, feeling like they look ugly, even though the other person, people around would give them feedback to say, but you look okay. But this concern is not just enough. It has to be followed by, the behaviors that they will perform to like looking at themselves at the mirror, always checking themselves and making sure that they look okay and presentable.
Okay. How is it different though from just, when I'm just unhappy with how I look?
Okay. So it's different because, when you're unhappy, we have to look at the language that the person uses. So it's not just feeling unhappy, it's the irrational perception. Because everybody else, when they look at this person, they look okay. So there is an element of exaggerating whatever deformity, that they might actually be observing in themselves. So it's the irrational thoughts of this perception of themselves. Because when you really look at them, there's really nothing wrong. They look normal, but to them, they don't look okay. They look ugly. A typical example would be the Picasso. There's a nice picture there of the Picasso where you see this distorted feature. When they look at themselves, that's what they see.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what are some of the common signs, though? Because some people may probably are listening to us and thinking, okay, I do have those moments where I really don't like how I look, or I think I'm ugly, or I think, this part of the body could look better, but I don't know whether that is extreme or I've gotten to that extreme level. So what are some of the common signs or symptoms that someone might actually be struggling with body dysmorphia, and they might want to take that seriously? And it's not just a matter of, I don't like this look, or yes, some people tell me I look fine, but this is what I see. What should we look out for?
It's, what is it that they're unhappy about? Is it just one thing? It's my nose, I don't like it. Or is it just my eyes? What we've seen with body dysmorphic disorder is that the preoccupation is not just with one part of the body. It would be at least, 1 to 7 parts of their bodies. Mostly the face, but it will go down to other parts of the body. So if this person, what we look at is, fine, you are complaining about this appearance that you're not happy about. How is it affecting your day-to-day? How is it affecting your relationships? So a person that we need to worry about is a person who starts now avoiding social, settings, avoiding going out. It might look like a bit of social anxiety, but this is different. It's because they're worried that when they go out, people are going to look at them and then they're going to judge them according to their looks. And the people, mostly they're depressed. There could be an element of depression because literature tells us that most people who suffer from body dysmorphic disorder, they also have depression. So you will pick up on elements of low self-esteem, poor confidence, which we normally see, as a symptom of depression. But this could be worse because it could be worsened with suicidality. So the problem with suicidal ideation is that sometimes people might not, necessarily mention that actually I am thinking about death. But the content about the future, are they hopeless? Are they feeling, when they talk about the future, are they talking about it in a positive manner?
Yeah. So in your experience, Batseba, is it mostly young people who suffer from this? Because I'm just thinking about, for instance, like look at social media and the role that it may play in just exacerbating this. Where social media and beauty standards, I imagine they play a role in body dysmorphia, particularly among young South Africans. So in your experience, are there more adults? Is it more young people who are mostly on social media who often get affected?
You know what, Clement? Clinically, it's very rare to come across this case, right? But I would say that with the amount of, the body, in terms of representing the body in a certain way, in terms of beauty, that does play a role in terms of, affecting, I would say most young people they get depressed because of this. So the most time, literature tells us, most time that we would actually find these people is when they come for surgery. When they do seek plastic surgery, that's when you will sort of like find maybe around 5% of people who end up there. That's when you will pick them up, or if they go to the dermatologist, because they will go there to actually fix these features. But the fixation around beauty standards and what is acceptable, what is, what makes you feel good in terms of, the way it's being portrayed by the media, it does have a great influence because people feel if I don't look this way, then I'm not acceptable. So it can actually influence some of these symptoms because we tend to, it's called modeling. So now as a young person, who do I look up to? So celebrities are the people that, are the young people will look up to. So when they look at themselves, they will actually think, they would use that as a value system for themselves. And we know that adolescence, it's a very fragile stage. That's when, the sense of being is actually built. So I think social media does play a role. And even in terms of onset, we can see that most cases are shown to actually start around, they're more prevalent around the adolescent age. And then we'll see them mostly, later on in life. And I think it's because then people are older, people have access to money, they have access to certain services. They can try and do something about these features, and that's when they can actually be diagnosed.
Okay. I've got some WhatsApps that have come through on 072 702 1702, calls on 011 883 0702. So we'll start with them after this break.
In business, a rand saved is a rand earned. And almost 100,000 businesses trust Outsurance.
We in the eye care industry, we're saving over 1,200 rand a month. To all the business owners, you've got nothing to lose by giving Outsurance a chance to quote on your business insurance. It's true to say that you always get something out with Outsurance.
For your business insurance, contact Outsurance to see how much your business could save. SMS quote to 43503 for immediate cover, or visit outsurance.co.za today. A licensed insurer in FSP. T's and C's online.
Legendary spins lead to striking wins in the Hollywood Bets exclusive Spinner Zonke Tournament of Champions. Take dominance in the arena of big wins and power your spins with 3 rand or more on selected slots. Conquer the leaderboard for a chance to win a share of 500,000 rand in cash. Spinner to electrifying games that bring you closer to colossal wins. Bet now. T's and C's apply. Hollywood Sportsbook is a licensed betting operator. Hollywood Bets supports responsible gambling. No persons under the age of 18 years are permitted to gamble. Winners know when to stop. South African Responsible Gambling Foundation toll-free counseling line 0800 006 008 or WhatsApp help to 076 675 0710.
Hi, I'm Lewis Hamilton. Victory demands everything, but the journey is never solo. My team carves the way, data and innovation are my compass. This is how today's champions are made.
Drive your success and trade like a champion. CFI, a global leading broker now in South Africa. Access over 15,000 instruments, advanced trading tools, 24/7 support, and superior trading services. Visit cfi.trade today. CFI Financial is an authorized financial services provider.
CFI, empower yourself.
702 and Absa Home Loans are bringing to light the property matters you want to know more about. This Wednesday, we're talking about the roles and responsibilities of tenants versus landlords. So tune into the masterclass with Relebohile Mabucha on 702 for an in-depth discussion about all you need to know before getting into a lease. The masterclass with Relebohile Mabucha this Wednesday, brought to you by Absa Home Loans on 702. Absa is an authorized financial services and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
702.
Health and wellness.
Body dysmorphia is what we're discussing on our health and wellness feature this morning. Let's go to your WhatsApps.
Hi, Clement and the team. Geesh, I think I'm someone who definitely suffers from body dysmorphia. I think they call it BDD. Ever since I was told that, oh my gosh, you've gained weight, back when I was in grade 8, I think. Ever since then, it's probably been a roller coaster ride of, going through, food problems, bulimia, anorexia, weight gain, gaining weight and whatnot. And you just never think you're beautiful enough, no matter how many times you're told you're beautiful. How I overcame it is I always just make sure I eat healthy, work out, try to listen to a lot of, good mental awareness thoughts. Yeah, I don't want to waste too much time saying.
Hello, 702 listeners. I really need help. I think the topic of today really targets me. I've been suffering from this thing of believing and trusting that I have bad breath. So now if I date a person, I will just keep my distance. Kissing is a no-no. At work, I cannot perform well because some people will ask, why can't you open your mouth? Why can't you do this? So it's my belief. But then it gets deep because I feel like people are lying to me. So meaning I have it, but nobody's able to confront me to say, okay, you actually have it. I went to the dentist. The dentist says there's nothing there, but I still feel like I do have it. Every time when I see people on TV, like actors talking next to each other, I always think to myself, can they smell their own breath? Like, how bad is it? Is it like I fear? I don't talk to people who are close to me. So I keep a safe following distance before I can open my mouth. I've been suffering from this and I'm still looking for help even today. Thank you.
Hello, this is Ben from Heart of Earsports. I'm a philosopher of medicine. I'm curious whether your guest has any insights on why BDD is considered mental disorder, but gender dysphoria isn't. When actually, from what I understand from the conversation, the two conditions seem very similar, except insofar as one specifically relates to gender, and the other relates to sometimes maybe identifying as being disabled when you're not, something along those lines.
Oh, thank you for the questions. Batseba?
Hi, how are you?
Yeah, you can go ahead.
Yes. Okay. So where do I start now? Clement? Guide me.
So you can start with the other one was talking about bad breath and how they need help. They're concerned about, they often don't want to speak very close to people because they feel like their breath smells. And they're saying they've had this for many years. So she says she needs help. Any advice on what she needs to do, and is that considered a body dysmorphia?
You know what? That was a very interesting one, actually, the way she actually described it. So already we can see in this case she has been to the dentist. She's doing everything. That actually, it's confirming the opposite. It's not confirming that there actually is a bad breath. So you can see there is an element of delusion. So I would actually say that I would advise the person, because then we cannot really diagnose the person here. I would really advise them to go see, like a psychiatrist or a psychologist where they can be assessed properly, because you can see that there is a bit of delusion there, where there is that false belief. Even though the person, there is evidence that shows otherwise, the person is still obsessed to say, but I do have a bad breath, and it really is affecting, because remember I said there has to be an interference into their day-to-day. So if you cannot open your mouth and you are at work, so how are you going to be, effective in your work, in your relationships? You have to, actually have conversations with people. And so you can see that already her life is affected, because she has to talk, but she's not talking to people. It can even be considered as rude. So the fact that there is an interference, we can see that there is a clinical element to it.
Okay.
And and the difference between this and the explanation to the other lady, I'm glad that actually she raised something very important. So when we diagnosed body dysmorphic disorder, there shouldn't be an eating disorder. And I think she did explain utter something around bulimia. So if there is some sort of eating disorder, bulimia, obviously people will throw up to try and, make sure that they don't gain weight, and the others will starve themselves. And we also have something like pica, where people would be eating non-food elements. So I think in that case, the person rather goes to a professional, they deal with the eating disorder, because there could be other underlying issues then that, they could actually see an improvement.
Okay, the difference then between body dysmorphia, someone asked about gender dysphoria. Why is that not considered a mental illness?
Okay, so I think now we're stepping into, because remember I said we work with umbrellas.
Yeah.
So I think we're moving more into, what are we talking about? So we're moving more into the space of somatoform. So yes. So I think if you've checked, but gender, actually, it is considered a mental illness. I think the debate around it, gender, Clement, gender what? So
dysphoria.
So if you look at it at the moment, which I think the challenge is the statistical manual that we're using.
Yeah.
It's the one that actually put the different categories.
Okay.
But we sort of like moving into a thin line, because I think the DSM-4, we are currently on DSM-5, revised one.
Okay. What we'll do then is maybe next time focus a lot on gender dysphoria as well, just to get more understanding on that. Batseba Mutua, clinical psychologist, thanks for making time for us.
To the itchy, watery eyes, the cough, the sniff and sneeze, and the hives, we say unite against allergies.
Demazin, once a day, keeping those allergies far away. Sniffs and sneezes out of our way. We're feeling better with Demazin once a day.
For 24-hour allergy relief, speak to your pharmacist about Demazin. Demazin gets it done.
Hi, I'm Dion Free. Winning requires audacity. That's why I joined African Bank and opened a 60-month fixed-term investment account. I'm scoring 12.8% interest at expiry on my investment. How cool is that? You too can join the bank that backs you to grow your money. Pop into a branch near you or visit africanbank.co.za. African Bank. Audacity to believe. African Bank is a licensed financial services and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
Coming up
on the Midday Report.
Coming up, the Midday Report with Jane Dutton in for Mendy Wiener. How are you doing, Jane?
Very well, thank you. I mean, it's been a very busy day in the courts when the lights stay on. We've got the Employment Equity Act, this citizenship case, which will impact thousands of people. There are also a couple of memorials underway for the police officers whose car was found in the Henops River, and also the collapse of the George building that happened a year ago, and still no justice there. We're going to be talking to the Mayor of Cape Town about why Cape Town got a ratings upgrade from Moody's.
All right, that's the Midday Report with Jane Dutton coming up after 12. Thank you for listening to the Tuesday edition of the Clement Manyathela Show. We'll be back with you again tomorrow between 9 and 12. Time for the news now, and this Eyewitness News is brought to you by Momentum. Go big or live within your means. The right advice depends on your context. Contact a Momentum accredited advisor today. Momentum is part of Momentum Group Limited, an authorized financial services and registered credit provider. Have a beautiful day, my friends. Bye-bye.
This is EWN.
Good afternoon, I'm Bali Dlamini. A memorial service for 3 Free State police officers who died in the Henops River will be held today. The official service taking place in Bloemfontein comes days after authorities recovered a vehicle that the officers were travelling in. Constables Boipelo Senoge, Cebekhulu Linda and Kiamogetsu Base died in a crash in Centurion while en route to Polokwane. Mongezi Koko has more from Bloemfontein.
A week-long search for the missing constables ended with the grim discovery in the Henops River, hundreds of kilometers from where their journey began.